Chapter 944. Why are you so overbearing? Qin Yining was very angry. I hate it when you want to send me to Sia for no reason. If you don't want me to say it, then listen to me. Pang Xiao carried Qin Yining into the bedroom. He strode to the bedside and gently put Qin Yining down. Qin Yining rolled around angrily and hugged the quilt with her back facing Pang Xiao. Her angry look was really pitiful and cute. Even if she was very angry, it would have dissipated. However, Pang Xiao's face was still sullen. He sat sideways and gently stroked her shoulder with his large hand. Qin Yining shook off the quilt and buried herself in the soft cotton. She also pushed his hand away. It seemed that she was really angry. Pang Xiao was angry and affectionate. He kicked off his boots and turned around to hug Qin Yining and the quilt. If you're good and don't put yourself in danger in the future, I won't send you away. I'm not a 3-year-old child. What's there to be good about? Moreover, when have I not been fully prepared when I took risks? When have I not been scared but not in danger? You can't be scared even if you are. Pang Xiao tightened his arms. Qin Yining buried her face in the quilt. She did not want to argue with Pang Xiao. She knew that Pang Xiao was worried about her. He was frightened by what Guan Dahu and the others said this time. But then again, who would be so free to go and look for danger? When had she not been caught off guard by danger? It was not that she wanted to take the risk, but when it happened, she had no choice at all. However, she could not defend herself. If she said it, it would only make Pang Xiao feel more guilty. Seeing that Qin Yining was unwilling to speak, Pang Xiao sighed helplessly. He turned around and tightly imprisoned Qin Yining under his body. His thumb forcefully and gently turned her little face to face, and he kissed her lips. Sister Yi, are you angry with me? His lips were warm, soft, and slightly dry. Qin Yining felt a slight itch. She stuck out her tongue and moistened his lips. Pang Xiao's eyes deepened, and his breathing became heavy. A caring kiss was enough to answer her question. If she was angry at him, why would she kiss him? Recalling his fierce attitude just now, Pang Xiao felt guilty. In the end, it was all his fault. If he could control the situation and make Qin Yining's life worry-free, why would a girl like her have to take so many risks? Just by listening to Jinghu Wei's report, he was already furious. Qin Yining was the one who had to face danger all the time. She was not a blockhead. She could feel fear and sadness. She had sacrificed so much for him. Even if she took risks, it was for him. But he was fierce to her. Sister Yi, I know I was wrong. Pang Xiao buried his face in Qin Yining's neck. I shouldn't have talked to you so loudly. Qin Yining smiled. His fair fingers stroked Pang Xiao's hair as if he was caressing a loyal beast. This man was so heroic and domineering, but every time in front of her, he would take off all his disguises and spread out his softest side for her to see. She knew that he was wholeheartedly doing this for her, so how could she be angry with him? I know you're doing this for my own good. The news they found out just now scared you. She could understand him. Sister Yi was such a good person, yet someone dared to harm her. The more Pang Xiao thought about it, the more his heart ached. The more his heart ached, the more he hated Guan Dahu, Lu Ban, and the others to the bone. He really wanted to eat their flesh. I'll kill them. Pang Xiao squeezed the words out from between his teeth. As he spoke, he was about to get up. Qin Yining was shocked and quickly grabbed his hand. No, we can't do anything to them now. We don't know how many people they have secretly contacted. What if we do something to them and the other side explodes? The secret of the treasure will definitely be exposed. Pang Xiao pushed Qin Yining's hand away and quickly strode outside. Qin Yining hurriedly got up and chased after him. Wang Yi, don't be rash. She. Pang Xiao turned around. Then, he spoke in a deep voice like an angry King Kong. What secret? What treasure? Am I going to sacrifice my wife for the treasure? Why can't I kill them? I'll personally go and twist their heads off and kick them like a ball. After saying that, he turned around and left. When he reached the porch, Pang Xiao told Bing Tang and Ji Yun, who were silent outside the door, serve the princess consort well. Don't let her go out. Bing Tang and Ji Yun were silent and could only agree. Qin Yining said angrily, Pang Zhishi, if you kill them, all my previous efforts will be in vain. Pang Zhishi. However, Pang Xiao refused to listen to Qin Yining. When he finished speaking, he had already walked far away. Ji Yun and Bing Tang supported Qin Yining on his left and right. They cautiously persuaded, Princess Consort, don't be angry. Wang Yi is just a little short-tempered, that's why he spoke so harshly. Wang Yi loves you the most. He didn't really want to quarrel with you. Qin Yining nodded. He pulled the two people's hands into the room and silently sat at the square table. Bing Tang and Ji Yun watched how Qin Yining and Pang Xiao had gone through so much to be together. They were both touched and envious of their feelings. In their hearts, how could they not hope to find a good person in the future who would treat them like how Wang Yi treated the princess consort? Now that they suddenly saw these two people quarreling, and Wang Yi's angry appearance, the two of them were a little confused for a moment. Qin Yining sat at the square table and fiddled with the tassels hanging down from the large red peach tablecloth. Princess consort. Ji Yun called out hesitantly. The princess consort didn't say anything. She just sat there in a daze. No matter how one looked at her, she gave off a bleak and desolate feeling. Wang Yi was really too much. The princess consort had done so much for him. In any case, he had to take into account that the two of them had gone through thick and thin together. He couldn't really quarrel with the princess consort. Qin Yining regained his senses and suddenly said, Ji Yun, Wang Yi and I have different opinions. Only you can help me now. Are you willing to listen to Wang Yi's orders or are you willing to listen to me? Ji Yun was stunned. She only thought for a moment before saying, although this servant was given to the princess consort by Wang Yi, this servant has only recognized you as my master ever since I started following you. If Wang Yi and the princess consort have the same opinion, I will listen to you. If Wang Yi and the princess consort have different opinions, I will listen to you. Even if you help me, will you let Wang Yi punish you? Ji Yun nodded and said with a smile, the princess consort will protect my life. Qin Yining nodded with a smile and said, all right. Change into a set of light clothes and cover your face. Don't let anyone recognize you. Use your lightness kung fu to rush to the residence where I placed Guan Dahu at the fastest speed. If Wang Yi selects his men, he might arrive first or he might be a step slower. If he is a step faster than you, don't force your way in and quickly come back. If you are faster than Wang Yi, go in and inform them. Take them to Sitong number and find shopkeeper Yin. Tell him that it is Boss Chou's order and ask them to help hide the people. As she spoke, she gave the maple leaf jade pendant that Chiu Feishan gave her to Ji Yun. Ji Yun put the things away and nodded, all right, I will go now. Qin Yining quickly grabbed Ji Yun, remember, you cannot expose your identity and don't put yourself in danger. You must prioritize your own safety. If you can save it, then save it. If you can't, then forget it. Also, Wang Yi left Jinghu Wei there. Wang Yi sent 2 people before, but only one came back to report. This means that there is at least one Jinghu Wei hiding in the dark. You have to be careful. Yes, I know. Don't worry, princess consort. Ji Yun didn't ask anything and answered neatly. As she walked, she took off the silver hairpin on her head and neatly tied her long hair into a bun. She quickly went out to find men's clothes. Bing Tang stayed by Qin Yining's side. He looked outside the door nervously and closed it. Then he closed the door. Princess Consort, I have checked. No one outside heard it. Bing Tang pulled Qin Yining into the inner room. In fact, this was the inner residence where the princess consort lived. Other than the personal maidservants and Wang Yi, no one would walk around here. Therefore, Bing Tang was actually guarding against the newcomers, Ziyuan and Smile. She and Ji Yun could guarantee that they were completely loyal to the princess consort. Even if it was Wang Ye's orders, when there was a conflict with Qin Yining's orders, they would decisively choose to stand on Qin Yining's side. However, Ziyuan and Smile were not necessarily so. Qin Yining smiled and said, "All right, let's lie down first. Your family's Wang Yi, that stubborn donkey, refused to listen to me. If he really killed Guan Dahu and the others, wouldn't we be at a loss when we need them in the future? Wang Yi is still worried about you. That's why he did this." "Yes. I also understand. He would rather give up the treasure to avenge me. I am very happy in my heart." However, looking at the overall situation, he was too impulsive. When Bing Tang saw that Qin Yining's state of mind was very calm, he put down his worries and said with a smile, "Jinan Wang and Tian Jizi were looking for the treasure. Today, for the treasure, they almost lost their lives in the imperial mausoleum. If there was such a large sum of money, who wouldn't be tempted? Wang Yi didn't care about it for you. I don't know how many people in the world would envy you." "Yes." Qin Yining couldn't help but laugh. When he thought of Pang Zhao's angry appearance just now, as if his tail had been stepped on, Qin Yining's heart softened into a pool of spring water. Even though he was a little overbearing, every time he was overbearing, it was for her own good. Moreover, he would always respect her, no matter whether it was big or small. He would ask for her opinion first before discussing it with his advisors. How many women in the world could receive such respect? Pang Zhao had made enough concessions for him. The heavy rain for days made the evening sky as gloomy as night. The sky was dark, and dark clouds were pressing down. At this time, people who could not go out were hiding at home as much as possible. A slender figure ran wildly in the quiet alley. When she encountered a wall that blocked her way, she did not even take a detour. Instead, she directly jumped over the wall like a nimble monkey. Chapter 945. The cold rain poured down, drenching the soft armor of the Jinghu Wei and the guards of the prince's mansion. They stood at the head of the table, looking at the tightly shut door in front of them with a gloomy expression. More than 100 people stood there solemnly, but no one made a sound. Pang Zhao stepped out of the crowd and went to knock on the door. Not long after, he heard the same doorman from the day answer impatiently, "Who is it? It's raining so heavily, who would come at this time?" Pang Zhao lowered his voice and said with a local accent, "It's me. Open the door, the boss is here." Today, Pang Zhao had been chatting with the doorman. Now that he heard the voice of an acquaintance, the doorman was unguarded and immediately opened the door. "Hey, why is the boss here at this time? Is it?" Before he finished speaking, he was completely stunned. The doorman stared blankly at the soldier standing in front of the door. His words were stuck in his throat, and he took 2 steps back and sat on the ground. You. Huzi and the others silently swarmed in, and neatly knocked the doorman unconscious and placed him in the corridor to shelter from the rain. They went in an orderly manner, and knocked out all the servants they saw and placed them in the corridor. Not long after, Pang Zhao led his men into the inner courtyard. Almost as soon as the Jinghu Wei arrived, the person who had been hiding in the dark returned to Pang Zhao's side and reported in a low voice, "Wang Yi, 3 of the 6 people are drinking and chatting in the reception pavilion. The other 3 ate too much and went back to their rooms to sleep." Pang Zhao nodded and ordered the Jinghu Wei to split into 3 groups to search for them in the bedrooms. He then led his men to kick open the door to the reception pavilion. In the reception pavilion, Guan Dahu was drinking and chatting with his 2 brothers, bragging about the glorious deeds of the past. He even told the 2 of them about the thrilling scene in the desert. Facing their admiring gazes, Guan Dahu was extremely satisfied. Unexpectedly, just as he was bragging, the door suddenly made a sound. The 3 of them were shocked. Guan Dahu was even calmer. He put on airs and reprimanded without turning his head, "These servants are becoming more and more unruly." Suddenly, Guan Dahu felt that something was wrong. The 2 people sitting across from him were like chickens that had been strangled by their necks. Both of them were tongue-tied and their eyes were wide open, as if they had received a great shock. Guan Dahu turned around in confusion, and his pupils instantly shrank. The cold tip of the sword was pointed at the tip of his nose, and large beads of sweat trickled down his forehead. Who are you? You, how dare you, how dare you?" The words of questioning the other party for trespassing were stuck in his mouth. This was because Guan Dahu had clearly seen everyone's attire. These were clearly soldiers. Pang Zhao sneered, "You're Guan Dahu." Guan Dahu's body trembled. He immediately knew that he was most likely doomed. The other party had named him and was clearly coming for him. Moreover, they were only a few small fish and shrimps, while the other party was a capable and valiant man. Guan Dahu's voice trembled. His eyes stared at the tip of the sword, and his eyes became cross-eyed. Another drop of cold sweat trickled down his forehead. "This one is, may I ask, honored one?" Impatient to listen to Guan Dahu speak, Pang Zhao directly introduced himself, Pang Zhishi. Guan Dahu was so scared that his entire body trembled. He said in a trembling voice, So it's Prince Zhongshuan. If you have any orders, just say it. This one will definitely tell you everything I know." Pang Zhao shook his head, and the sharp tip of the sword swayed with his movements. "It's not an order. A scum like you is not worthy to listen to this king's orders. This king doesn't need you to do anything today, and doesn't want to hear anything from you." When Guan Dahu heard this, his heart turned cold. Wang Yi brought so many people here as if he was raiding his house, but he didn't ask for anything. Then wouldn't he die without a doubt? Wang Yi, Wang Yi. Guan Dahu knelt down in a panic and stared at the tip of the sword. He trembled as he begged for mercy. "Wang Yi, spare this one's life. Wang Yi, this one knows the secret of the Dian dynasty's treasure. As long as you spare this one's life, this one will definitely take you to find the treasure. Yes, Wang Yi, spare my life. Wang Yi, we can also tell you the whereabouts of the treasure. Please spare our lives." The other 2 people also knelt down and kowtowed. Pang Zhao smiled and shook his head, "No need. This king doesn't care about the treasure." Guan Dahu thought about it and immediately understood. He knew that Qin Yining's position in Pang Zhao's heart was not simple. They were all traitors who betrayed Qin Yining and the Qing Tian alliance. Could it be that Wang Yi was here to help the Wang Fei clean up the traitors? Thinking of this, Guan Dahu broke out in a cold sweat. "Wang Yi, this one is loyal and devoted to the Wang Fei. As long as the Wang Fei says the word, this one will go to the heavens if she wants this one to. This one will go to the ground if she wants this one to." Pang Zhao sneered and the tip of the sword gradually entered Guan Dahu's mouth. Guan Dahu pulled his neck back to hide, but Pang Zhao did not plan on letting him go. The tip of the sword moved, and Guan Dahu screamed as blood flowed out of his mouth. "Since you can't speak, then don't ask for your tongue. Guan Dahu was paralyzed on the ground in pain. Cold sweat quickly soaked his clothes. The two people behind him were already scared silly. They kowtowed again and again, "Spare our lives, Wang Yi, spare our lives." Pang Shao mercilessly cut off their tongues as well. The room was filled with the smell of blood. If an ordinary person were to see such a scene, they would probably think that they had entered the hell of having their tongues pulled out. However, the people around Pang Shao were all veterans. They had shed blood on the battlefield. They had seen crueler things on the battlefield. So, this was just a small wound for them. Pang Shao stood where he was. He looked coldly at the three people who were grunting in pain. A short while later, Jinghu Wei came out with three more people. Lu Ban and the others were thrown to the ground. When they saw Guan Dahu's miserable state, they were scared out of their wits. They could only kowtow and beg for mercy. Pang Shao did not treat them differently. The 6 people here all had their tongues cut off first. They were left bleeding and feeling the fear of death before they were finished off with one blow. Pang Shao ordered Huzi to take care of the corpses and restore the residence to its original state before leaving. After leaving the courtyard, Pang Shao said to the elite tiger guards and the protectors of the prince's mansion who were guarding outside, "These people must have accomplices hiding nearby. Put the entire city under martial law and search for suspicious people." "Yes." Ji Yun changed into dry clothes. She sat opposite Qin Yining and sighed. "Wang Fei, I was late. When I arrived, Wang Ye's people had already surrounded the residence. And Wang Yi didn't seem to be only targeting that residence. Wang Ye's people were searching the streets. When I came back, I used a lot of effort to avoid Wang Ye's people." Qin Yining brought the prepared ginger soup to Ji Yun. He nodded and said, "I know. Eat it while it's hot. It can drive away the cold." Ji Yun thanked him with a smile. She held the ginger soup and gulped it down. Then she said, "Wang Fei, what should we do now?" Qin Yining slowly shook his head. "Wang Yi insisted on doing this. We don't have any useful people around us. The silver-masked spies have all gone to Xia. I only feel that we are lacking in manpower now." She never thought that she and Pang Shao would have different opinions. In the past, she would directly order Tang Xiu to do whatever she wanted. Now that things have come to this, there is no other way. We can only hope that Wang Yi won't let any fish escape the net after searching the entire city. If there is, I'm afraid that the secret of the treasure will be exposed. Qin Yining rubbed his forehead tiredly. She had planned for so long and done so much in order to obtain the treasure for Pang Shao by hook or by crook. But who would have thought that things would develop like this? She couldn't blame Pang Shao. She just felt helpless. The three of them sat in front of the lamp for a moment. Ji Yun returned Qiu Feishan's maple leaf-shaped jade tablet to Qin Yining. Qin Yining took the jade tablet and played with it for a moment. Suddenly, he said, "I pretended to be Boss Qiu and joined the Qing Tian alliance." "Yes. Wang Fei, what's wrong?" "So, if there really are fish that escape the net, when they are hunted by the entire city, if they have nowhere to go, where will they go for help?" Ji Yun and Bing Tang's eyes lit up. Qin Yining smiled and said, "It's too late today. Wang Yi will be back soon. Tomorrow, Ji Yun will find time to go to Sidong's shop and tell shopkeeper Yin." Qin Yining leaned close to Ji Yun and whispered a few words in her ear. Ji Yun immediately smiled and said, "Wang Fei is still the most meticulous. This is a good idea. I will go tomorrow." Qin Yining asked Bing Tang and Ji Yun to prepare a warm quilt for her. Then, she changed her clothes and lay down first. She kept her eyes open and waited for Pang Shao. Who would have thought that he still hadn't come back in the middle of the night? She couldn't hold on and unknowingly fell asleep. In a daze, she seemed to feel that the bed beside her had collapsed. Chin Yining turned over and pushed the quilt to the other side. He didn't even open his eyes and said, "Why did you come back so late?" Pang Xiao was originally careful not to wake Chin Yining. Who would have thought that as soon as he lay down, Chin Yining would give him the quilt and take the initiative to throw herself into his arms. Today, he didn't listen to her advice and went to hunt down the traitors of the Qing-Tian alliance. He was already mentally prepared for Chin Yining to be angry at him and not allow him to go back to his room to sleep. He didn't expect his sister Yi to be so gentle and soft as she leaned against him. "Be good, go to sleep." Pang Xiao turned over and wrapped her in his arms. He planted a kiss on her forehead and closed his eyes in satisfaction. He came back safely. Chin Yining was finally relieved and fell asleep without any haze. Early the next morning, Chin Yining and Pang Xiao finished washing up and ate breakfast together. "Jishi, I need to make a trip to Sitong restaurant today." Pang Xiao raised his eyebrows. "How are you going? Are you going just like this? Or are you going after a while?" "Of course I'm going after a while." Chin Yining tilted his head and looked at him. "What's wrong?" Pang Xiao shook his head and said, "You're not allowed. You're not allowed." Chin Yining's almond-shaped eyes widened. Pang Xiao said, "Be good and stay at home. Before I can thoroughly investigate the traitors of the Qing-Tian alliance, you're not allowed to go anywhere. You're not allowed to go out either." Chapter 946. Yesterday, I said that you'll be grounded, but I didn't say how many days you'll be grounded. I'm arranging for people to capture the remaining members of Guan Dahu's gang. So far, we've found the whereabouts of 4 of them. They're all fugitives now, and they must hate me to the core. If you go out, you might become their target. Pang Xiao got up and stretched out his arm to rub Chin Yining's forehead. "So be good and stay in the room. I'll arrange for people to set up a careful defense." Chin Yining was unhappy. "I still have a lot of things to do outside. Master Zhong and shopkeeper Yin's matter. If they look for you later, I'll get someone to bring them in, okay? Isn't that strange? They usually know that I can go out." "It's okay. I'll just tell them that you're grounded." Chin Yining rolled her eyes at Pang Xiao. If she did as Pang Xiao said, she would lose all her face if outsiders found out that she was grounded. Seeing that she was unhappy, Pang Xiao couldn't bear to see her like this. He softened his voice and hugged her. Okay. I promise you that I'll catch those people and make sure that there's no danger outside. You can go out whenever you want, okay?" Chin Yining frowned and didn't say a word. Pang Xiao kissed her. "My sweetheart, my baby, don't be angry with me, okay?" Chin Yining was amused by his sweet tone and chuckled. "Okay, I know you're doing this for me." "Really? Then I'm not angry." "I'm not angry." "Really? Really?" Pang Xiao deliberately let out a long sigh of relief. My sister Yi scared me." Chin Yining glared at him. "How did I scare you? You don't know. If I make you angry, I'll be more nervous than if I'm on the battlefield. Look at all the sweat I'm sweating." Chin Yining turned around and stroked his neck and Adam's apple with his slender fingers. It was indeed moist when he touched it. "Isn't that so? You're actually sweating so much." Chin Yining sighed and said, "We're all family, so why are you so nervous and torturing yourself?" Pang Xiao's Adam's apple bobbed. He was worried that Chin Yining would hear him swallowing. That would be too embarrassing. Okay. Pang Xiao deliberately changed the topic. "What do you want to do these days? Do you want to invite a few opera singers to the house?" I don't want it. To outsiders, we are still in mourning. Why don't I make another pair of shoes for you in the next few days? This person had been unwillingly grounded by him. Not for his own pleasure, but to make shoes for him. Pang Zhao's heart swelled with heat. He hugged Qin Yining and kissed him for a long time before he was willing to let go. Pang Zhao still had to go out with people to search for the whereabouts of Guan Dahu's accomplices. After accompanying Qin Yining for a while, he left. Not long after he left, Ji Yun also left with the Fu's driver. They went to the dessert shops, rouge shops, and medicine shops in the city. The news that Wang Fei had been grounded had spread throughout the Fu. Everyone was discussing this matter in private. Even people as deeply in love as Wang Yi and Wang Fei would have times when they quarreled. Now, seeing Wang Fei's servant girl buying things as if they didn't cost money, and there was clearly a lot of rouge, powder, and medicine at home, the driver was even more certain that the two masters were not on good terms. Otherwise, Wang Fei wouldn't need to spend so much money to vent her anger. The driver wanted to get close to Ji Yun, but Ji Yun was Wang Fei's first-ranked servant girl. Ordinary people couldn't talk to her. Because he didn't want to cause trouble and make Wang Fei and Wang Yi sick of him, the driver could only obediently carry the things for her. Ji Yun saw that the driver following her was such an honest person and relaxed slightly. After making a big circle, she went to number 4 and flashed the jade tablet. She explained her intentions to head shopkeeper Ian in a low voice. Head shopkeeper Ian was a smart person. He knew last night that something bad had happened. The servants in the large Fu had been knocked unconscious for no reason. When they woke up, the masters in the Fu had disappeared. The servants were waiting on them, but they lost sight of their masters. Everyone was anxious and someone hurriedly came to report. Later, before they could figure out what was going on, the entire Huichuan County was under martial law by Wang Fu's guards. They were searching everywhere for a few fugitives. The way they searched was as if they couldn't wait to turn the entire Huichuan County upside down. Head shopkeeper Ian was also worried about whether he should ask Qin Yining when Ji Yun came. So, Wang Fei's intention is that if someone comes to seek Boss Chiu for protection, you should do your best to protect them. It's best to hide them in a place where Wang Yi can't find them. Head shopkeeper Ian wanted to refuse. It was obvious that Wang Yi and Wang Fei had an argument. The two of them had different opinions. As an outsider, if he got involved, once it happened in the future, he was afraid that he wouldn't have a good ending. But he didn't have the guts to refuse directly. Ji Yun could see head shopkeeper Yin's hesitation. She took out Qiu Feishan's jade tablet and showed it to him. Before Wang Fei came, Boss Chiu had already instructed that when you arrived in Huichuan, the local sitong shop would strictly listen to Wang Fei's command and dispatch. This servant understands head shopkeeper Yin's difficulties, but Wang Fei's instructions are urgent. Even if Wang Yi finds out, Wang Fei will protect you, so you really don't have to worry. Yes. Head shopkeeper Yin nodded. Although Ji Yun's words were polite, head shopkeeper Yin still thought of one thing. If he didn't listen to Qin Yining's instructions now, Wang Fei might have already dealt with him before Wang Yi came to find him. After making up his mind, head shopkeeper Yin immediately agreed to Ji Yun's request. Ji Yun also pretended to buy a lot of fashionable silks and satins with head shopkeeper Yin. She also said that Wang Fei wanted to buy autumn clothes for the servants in the residence and needed a lot of cotton cloth. Sitong shop did all kinds of business. The materials in the south were also the latest styles, so the orders for the Wang Fu's colorful clothes were naturally not small. Head shopkeeper Yin finished his business. He cheerfully sent Ji Yun out. Miss Ji Yun, don't worry. Although it has been raining heavily for days, our things are still the best. They are also stored properly. There are absolutely no defective goods. Ji-yun smiled and nodded. She opened the oil paper umbrella. Wang Fei specially instructed me to buy things from you. It can't be wrong. Then I'll have to trouble head shopkeeper Ian. The last sentence had a double meaning. Head shopkeeper Ian naturally understood. Oh, don't worry. Take care. Iyun held up an umbrella and stepped on a wooden plank to block the rain as he walked down the stairs. Shui Zi raised his head and saw Pang Xiao leading more than 10 guards from the prince's mansion. They were wearing raincoats and walking over from the corner. Seeing Ji Yun, Pang Xiao was also very surprised. Why are you here? Chapter 947. Pang Xiao looked at the cart full of items and his brows gradually furrowed. The accompanying Jinghu Wei, including Huzi, saw Pang Xiao's stern expression and couldn't help but become nervous. Ji Yun was nervous. Could it be that Wang Yi didn't believe her words? Or could it be that Wang Yi saw a flaw in her story? Who knew that after a long time, Pang Xiao finally said, Ji Yun, is your master angry? Ha! Ji Yun accidentally made a sound. Even Huzi and the other Jinghu Wei behind Pang Xiao were stunned. Ji Yun hurriedly said, No, don't think too much. Wang Fei only ordered this servant to come out and help buy things. This servant doesn't think Wang Fei is angry. Pang Xiao sighed. It seemed that Qin Yining was still unhappy when he announced that he was grounding her for no reason. Otherwise, she wouldn't have bought so many things at once. This was a rare occurrence in the past. She couldn't buy things by grounding herself, so she had Ji Yun come out to help buy things. Clearly, his darling was still angry. When he thought of Qin Yining being angry with him, Pang Xiao's hair almost turned white. You can go. Pang Xiao frowned and waved his hand. Ji Yun saw that Pang Xiao didn't seem to think too much and quietly sighed in relief. She bowed and got on the carriage. Pang Xiao watched as the carriage gradually disappeared in the rain. After thinking for a long time, he turned back and said, There seems to be a jewelry shop on the way here. Huzi was stunned and hurriedly replied, Yes. Let's go. Pang Xiao turned and walked back. Huzi led a dozen elite tiger guards and followed behind Pang Xiao. The group of people went straight to the jewelry store in an aggressive and imposing manner. The shopkeeper of the jewelry store was a plump old craftsman in his 60s. When he saw this, he was so scared that he almost knelt down on the spot. When Ji Yun returned to the prince's residence, she ordered the servants to move the things back to the inner residence. Then, she pulled Qin Yining into a separate room and told him everything that had happened. Qin Yining said in surprise, We actually ran into Wang Yi. He didn't suspect anything, did he? I don't think so, Ji Yun said with some hesitation, but this servant thinks that Wang Yi seems to have something on his mind. Qin Yining nodded thoughtfully. I understand. Later on, you. Princess Consort, Madame Zhongyibo requests an audience. With a smile, she lifted the curtain and entered the room. Qin Yining raised an eyebrow. Bing Tang said, Could it be that she's here to look for trouble again? Ji Yun also smiled coldly. She definitely doesn't have good intentions. Qin Yining sat down next to the dressing table and said, Then invite the people of Zhongyibo's residence in for a chat. It's in the reception pavilion of the inner residence. Okay. With a smile, she retreated. Qin Yining looked at himself in the mirror and said with a smile, Help me see if my hair is messed up. To deal with someone like Bian Shi, I've already won half the battle just by looking good. Ji Yun and Bing Tang both roared with laughter upon hearing this. Bian Ruhan was invited into the prince's residence. After she passed through the Chuihua gate, the mocking smile on her face deepened. TSK, your prince's residence is really polite to guests. You really want to invite me into the inner residence? The servant who was in charge of purchasing had heard a few servants from the prince's residence whisper that the Wang Fei had been grounded. That servant was smart and immediately told her when she returned. Bian Ruhan had originally been skeptical, but now that she had come to the prince's residence, she, who wasn't very familiar with Qin Yining and even had a grudge against him, did not invite her to the front yard but directly into the inner residence. Didn't this mean that the one surnamed Qin had been grounded for real? Smiling, who had led the way, didn't know how to respond. Bian Ruhan originally didn't need anyone to respond. After mocking her, she began to laugh to herself. When they arrived at the reception pavilion of the inner residence, Smiling lifted the curtain and invited Bian Ruhan in. Bian Ruhan said, "Where's your master? Why doesn't he personally welcome the guest? Is this how your prince's residence treats its guests?" Qin Yining was sitting at the head of the table. He was playing with the hibiscus jade ring on his left hand in boredom. Hearing this, he lazily said, "If it's a guest, and one with a noble character, it's naturally worth me going to welcome them." "What do you mean?" Bian Ruhan roared angrily. He pushed Smiling aside and burrowed into the room. "Are you saying that I'm not a guest? What noble character? You're just a whore who seduces someone else's husband. How noble is your character?" Qin Yining helplessly raised an eyebrow as he looked at Bian Ruhan. "The people of Zhongyibao's residence have specially come to quarrel with me." Bian Ruhan laughed coldly. "You're not worthy. I'm here to see what an unruly whore like you has done to let your husband down to be grounded." Qin Yining rubbed his temples and turned to say to Bing Tang and Ji Yun, "This news has spread too quickly." Ji Yun smiled and said, "It's most likely that someone has been purposely watching us all day." "Bah! Bullshit. Why would I be watching you all? I'm annoyed just by looking at you." Bian Ruhan was furious. Qin Yining looked sternly at Bian Ruhan. "You're also the daughter of a wealthy family. You're still young, so don't speak so rudely. You're embarrassing us all. Not to mention the wealthy families in Huichuan County, even ordinary families wouldn't allow their daughters to speak so obscenely. Those who know, it's your own fault for not having a good upbringing. Those who don't know would think that all the wealthy ladies in the capital are trash like you. You're tarnishing everyone's reputation. Isn't that your fault? You. Bullshit." Bian Ruhan stomped his feet after being reprimanded by Qin Yining. "If you were a good person, Wang Yi wouldn't have grounded you. You still don't know how to repent, and you're still spouting nonsense. You're simply despicable." Just as Bian Ruhan finished speaking, a deep and pleasant male voice came from outside. "Is there a guest in the house? Wang Yi." The door curtain was lifted by a maidservant. Following a respectful greeting, Peng Xiao walked in from outside the door. Bian Ruhan turned around and saw a tall man with broad shoulders and a narrow back. He had muscular arms and a thin waist. His face was very handsome, and his sword-like eyebrows were slanted upward. His almond-shaped eyes were slightly narrowed, and he was sizing her up with a scrutinizing gaze. Bian Ruhan's heart skipped a beat as she heard that. She didn't expect Prince Zhongshuan to be like this. Peng Xiao was holding a sandalwood box in his hands. On top of the box was a small bowl made of jade. The bowl was filled with round Eastern pearls, piled up like a bowl of rice. Qin Yining stood up and smiled. "You're back." "I'm back." Peng Xiao had hurried back from outside. He thought about how his wife was so angry at him that she sent people out to buy things. No matter what, he had to coax her a little. Therefore, when he saw Qin Yining still being as gentle as before and that she was still smiling like a flower, Peng Xiao even felt a little overwhelmed by the favor. "Sister Yi, quickly take a look. Do you like this?" Peng Xiao offered the things in his hands to Qin Yining. His attitude was very attentive. Chapter 948. Do you like it? It's an antique. I think the jade is pretty good. It's perfect for you to drink water. Pang Xiao thought for a while and said, if you don't want to use it to drink water, you can treat it as a decoration or put your earrings inside. Also, I think the beads inside are pretty good. If you like them, you can use them to make a set of head ornaments. Otherwise, you can use them as pearl powder. Otherwise, you can use them as marbles. Then he opened the sandalwood box. Inside was a gold necklace inlaid with jade. I think this goes well with the new material you bought. The necklace was not a simple circle. It was made up of several ruyi shapes connected together to form a beautiful circle. The jade was of excellent quality. As soon as Qin Yining took it out, Bian Ruhan couldn't help but be jealous. Why did you buy these? There are so many head ornaments at home. Even if I don't use the same ones, it will take me a year and a half to wear all of them. What are you afraid of? You can wear whatever you like. Choose the newish style. Leave those old-fashioned ones in the storage room. Whenever you like them, you can destroy them and ask someone to make new ones for you. Qin Yining smiled and nodded. Thank you, Wang Yi. She naturally knew that Pang Xiao felt guilty because she was grounded. He was afraid that she would be unhappy, so he tried to make her happy. Pang Xiao had originally ignored her and searched for the remnants of Guan Dahu and the others for her safety. Now, he was trying his best to make her happy. Qin Yining felt really satisfied and sweet. Especially when Bian Ruhan was next to her. Seeing Bian Ruhan's changing expression, Qin Yining felt very happy. Pang Xiao saw that Qin Yining had put away the necklace and was playing with the East Pearl inside the jade bowl. He seemed to like it very much, and his mood became even better. When he turned around, he saw Bian Ruhan still rooted to the ground like a log. He remembered that he had heard Bian Ruhan shouting when he came back. He couldn't help but frown. With a cold look in his eyes, he said, Madam Lu, why have you come to my humble abode? Could it be that the rules of Lu Boy's family have taught a woman like Madam Lu to make a fuss in other people's homes? Bian Ruhan's face immediately turned red. The quarrel between her and Qin Yining was a matter between the two women. However, being reprimanded by such a powerful and handsome man like Pang Xiao in front of her, she really felt embarrassed. Bian Ruhan glared at Pang Xiao like an angry cat. Wang Ye's words are wrong. If the road is not smooth, there will always be people stepping on it. I was just angry that someone seduced my husband. Wang Fei seduces men everywhere. Wang Yi, do you know that? Paw. Pang Xiao slammed his palm heavily on the table, almost breaking the table leg. Impudent. You dare to accuse others and slander Wang Fei's reputation. If I were Lu Boy, I would immediately open the ancestral hall and divorce you. Someone come. Wang Yi. Ji Yun and Bing Tang were secretly happy. Even their voices were louder than before. Pang Xiao said, personally send Madame Lu back to the Fu. Personally hand her over to Lu Boy. Tell Lu Boy that this is this king's intention. Please ask Lu Boy to discipline his family members and not let him casually harm others. Yes, Wang Yi. The two of them responded in unison. They smiled and came forward to support Bian Ruhan. Bian Ruhan was so angry that her face turned white. What do you mean by that? How did I harm others? What right do you have to accuse me? Pang Xiao couldn't be bothered with her. He waved his hand impatiently. Ji Yun went forward to support Bian Ruhan. Madame Zhongyibo, please. I'm not leaving. Bian Ruhan struggled with all her might. Who would have thought that after struggling for a while, Ji Yun's hand didn't loosen at all? Bian Ruhan stared at Ji Yun in shock. Ji Yun smiled and said, Madame Zhong Yibo is tired. Please go back and rest early. If you continue to struggle, my Wang Yi will ask the Fu's bodyguards to send you back. Your face might not look good then. She took the initiative to come to the Fu as a guest, but was sent back by the Fu's bodyguards. If this spread out, she would be even more embarrassed than Qin Yining, who was grounded. Bian Ruhan knew that she wouldn't be able to gain any benefits today, especially when Pang Xiao was glaring at her so fiercely that it seemed as if he could eat her alive. She couldn't stay any longer, so she followed the force of the cloud and left. Qin Yining looked at Ji Yun and Bian Ruhan's backs as they walked away. He shook his head helplessly. This woman's personality is too spoiled. Pang Xiao snorted coldly. She's spoiled. Did she come to our house on her own accord? Yes. She came to our house on her own accord. How dare she speak to you like that? Pang Xiao shook her head. I should have humiliated her just now to help you vent your anger. Qin Yining smiled and said, You gave me so many things in front of her just now. You already helped me vent my anger. Pang Xiao shook her head. That's nothing. When I find something good later, I'll buy it for you. If you like anything, you can ask someone to go out and buy it for you. I'll ask Mr. Xia to send the banknotes and silver I brought to you in a while. Qin Yining felt warm and amused when he heard this. Why do I need so much silver? I've already bought enough things today. I also asked Ji Yun to choose the fabric for the clothes. I'll make a new robe for you later. Pang Xiao held Qin Yining's hand. Sister Yi, you're so nice. Percent Lu residence. Ji Yun smiled and bowed to Lu Heng. This servant has already delivered the message. This servant will take her leave. Lu Heng nodded with a normal expression. He instructed the head steward to reward Ji Yun with a red envelope and sent her out. Lu Heng looked at the maidservant standing on his left and right and said, All of you can leave as well. Yes. The maidservants retreated in unison. The room was silent. Lu Heng sat upright on the chair with the official's hat, using his right arm to support his weight. Bian Ruhan stood in the distance a little timidly. From time to time, he would raise his head to look at Lu Heng. He looked very uneasy, like a child who knew that he had made a mistake. The two of them did not speak for a long time. Bian Ruhan did not know what Lu Heng wanted to say or do. However, she was too embarrassed to be sent back from the prince's residence. She wanted to fiercely complain about Qin Yining and Pang Xiao. However, when faced with Lu Heng's calm expression and even a slight smile on his lips, she did not dare to speak. Because she realized that she could not understand Lu Heng's mood at all. She did not know if his smile was truly happy or if there were other thoughts hidden. She also did not know if he was truly angry or if he was doing it on purpose. Bian Ruhan and Lu Heng had only been married for a short time, but she vaguely felt that she would never be able to see through him. Why did you go to the prince's residence to find the Prince Zhongshuan's consort? Lu Heng slowly asked. Chapter 949. See her. You're not being honest. Lu Heng smiled. You're going to mock her, aren't you? As soon as Bian Ruhan heard Lu Heng's laughter, her ears turned red. She had originally gone to mock Qin Yining, mocking her for falling out of favor sooner or later. Who knew that not only did she not see her fall out of favor, she even saw with her own eyes how much Prince Zhongshuan cherished her. She even suspected that the person she saw at that time was the awe-inspiring god of war, Wang Yi. When she was in her parents' home, she felt that her parents were already very loving. She thought that after she got married, if her husband could treat her like how her father treated her mother, she would be content for the rest of her life. Who knew that before she could be content, she would see with her own eyes the person she hated and hated get that content. Bien Ruhan hated her so much that her roots were itching. Especially when Lu Heng's tone was full of ridicule, as if he was mocking her stupidity. She had clearly gone to watch the show, but she had let others watch the show. Why aren't you saying anything? Lu Heng saw that Bien Ruhan wasn't saying anything, so he leaned closer and asked again. Bien Ruhan was embarrassed, and anger rose in her heart. Yes, I was going to mock her. She didn't abide by the virtues of a wife and was grounded by her man. I just wanted to see what kind of sad face she had after being grounded. Lu Heng smiled. What's the rush? You can try to speak slowly. There's no need to yell at me. This will only show that your upbringing is particularly worrisome. Bien Ruhan's eyes were filled with tears, and she glared at Lu Heng indignantly. How is my upbringing worrisome? She didn't abide by the virtues of a wife. Ruhan. Lu Heng's soft call stunned Bien Ruhan. Lu Heng continued, during this period of time, the city has been very chaotic. I saw that the prince's mansion had arranged for many of the prince's mansion's imperial bodyguards to search the entire city. It is said that they are looking for fugitives. Now that Huichuan County is not peaceful, for your safety, you'd better not go out casually in the future. It's best if you don't go out of the Chuehua Gate. Bien Ruhan's emotions went through a roller coaster ride. Dumbfounded, he said, You want to imprison me? Of course not. Lu Heng shook his head and sighed. Don't get the wrong idea. You didn't do anything wrong, so why should I ground you? I'm doing this for your safety. When Lu Heng looked at her, his gaze was too gentle, and his tone was too profound. Bien Ruhan suddenly understood something. Prince Zhongshuan grounded the princess, perhaps for the sake of the princess's safety. Otherwise, why would Wang Yi personally buy an antique head ornament and gently fawn over a Wang Fei who had been wrongly grounded? And the irony in Lu Heng's words was too clear. He was telling her that Qin Yining was not the one who had been wrongly grounded, but she was. Bien Ruhan's face flushed red. She covered her face with shame and indignation as she ran into the inner residence. Lu Heng looked at Bien Ruhan's back as she ran away. He propped his chin up with one hand and smiled playfully. Sometimes, he really wanted to thank Bien Ruhan for finding trouble out of nothing. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to obtain information about Qin Yining. If Bien Ruhan went to cause trouble, he might have been able to see how Qin Yining confronted him. The more he interacted with Bien Ruhan, the more Lu Heng found her to be boring. This woman was ignorant, arrogant, and reckless. She was just like an embroidered pillow with a belly full of idiots. The more he compared her, the more valuable Qin Yining's intelligence and courage became. She was completely devoted to Pang Xiao. No matter if the emperor used Pang Xiao or not, she would not leave him. This kind of devotion was enviable. In Lu Heng's eyes, all of Qin Yining's merits were magnified. With Bien Ruhan as a comparison, Qin Yining became even more precious. Thinking of the past, thinking of how he had bribed the people in the palace to take care of her for Qin Yining, he decided to give up on his plan to deal with Pang Xiao. In the end, he was an idiot. An idiot who could disregard all principles for Qin Yining. The continuous rain lingered day and night, and many roads in the city were already flooded with water. In the dark night, there were two sneaky figures on the dark street, cautiously approaching the back door of the four-way bus. Brother, did you see clearly? Are there no more soldiers from the prince's residence around here? I saw clearly. There shouldn't be any more. Okay, let's hurry and find Boss Cho of the four-way bus while no one from the prince's residence is here. But what kind of status does Boss Cho have? Would she really go against the prince's residence for us? Don't forget, she joined our Qing Tian alliance. What's more, 6 of our brothers inside are gone. Not even their bones are left. Out of the 4 of us outside, 2 were killed. Now, only the 2 of us are left. If we don't give it a try, are we going to wait for people to capture us and chop us up to feed the dogs? The 2 figures were silent for a while. They didn't know what was wrong with the world. In any case, they were once members of the Qingtian Alliance. In the pugilistic world, they had at least some dignity. Now, they had fallen to the bottom of the valley and become rats that everyone wanted to beat. I don't know what's wrong with that Prince Zhongshan, but he insists on killing all of us. Let's go. Let's give it a try. The 2 walked to the side door tiredly. One stood guard at the corner while the other knocked on the door. After hearing Ji Yun's instructions, head shopkeeper Yin had already ordered his trusted aide to stand guard at the front and back door. When he heard someone knocking on the door, his trusted aide immediately went to inform head shopkeeper Yin. Head shopkeeper Yin put on his outer robe and carried a candlestick along the corridor to the side door. He then took a deep breath and had his trusted aide answer the door. Who is it? The trusted aide's tone was slightly impatient. It's me. We are Boss Chio's friends. Head shopkeeper Yin thought for a moment and said, open the door. Let them in to talk. The soft creaking sound was drowned out by the pitter-patter of the rain. The 2 people squeezed through the side door of the 4-way bus. The 2 of you are brothers from the Qingtian Alliance, right? Head shopkeeper Yin smiled amiably. I heard from our boss that the brothers from the Qingtian Alliance are her brothers. She instructed me to make arrangements for the 2 of you. The 2 of them looked at each other. They were both overwhelmed by the favor and wished that they could slap their thighs and sigh. If they had known that Boss Chio of the 4-way bus was so loyal, they would have rushed here from the start. 2 of their brothers wouldn't have been hunted down. Thinking up to this point, the 2 of them felt a little dejected. Many thanks. May I ask how we should address you, old shopkeeper? We don't dare. My surname is Yin. How should I address you 2 brothers? When my boss met with Hall Master Chiao earlier, I don't think I saw the 2 of you. The 2 of them felt a little awkward. Guan Dahu arranged for the 4 of them to provide support outside while Guan Dahu and Lu Ban brought the other 4 brothers to walk around. They were both in the open and in the dark. It was safer to support each other. Chapter 950. Even so, the 2 could not speak the truth. They could only say, previously, Hall Master Chiao arranged for us to go out and handle some matters. Who would have thought that something would happen the moment we returned to the city? The tall and sturdy man in his early 30s smiled and said, I'm sure Fang. He pointed at the young and thin man next to him, he's Lu Xiong. So it's Strongman Sure and Strongman Lu. You're both friends of the boss, so you're friends of the entire 4-way shop. Head shopkeeper Yin cupped his hands in greeting, then sighed worriedly, I heard that the prince's estate is capturing fugitives. This city is so chaotic, sigh. The 2 sighed on the surface, but their hearts skipped a beat. They were afraid that head shopkeeper Yin would say that they could not take in fugitives and throw them out. Throwing them out would be considered polite, but what was even more frightening was that they would be sent directly to the prince's estate. They had both defected from the Green Sky Alliance, and were still using the Green Sky Alliance's name to seek benefits outside. If they were caught by the princess consort, they would probably die a horrible death. Head shopkeeper Yin had been in business for many years. How could he not see the 2's apprehension? He understood the crux of the matter with a little thought, but he pretended not to notice. With a serious expression, he said, since the situation is critical, it's not convenient for Su Hua at this time. We have a secret hiding place here that ordinary people will not discover. The 2 of you can come with me and settle down for the time being. Our boss said that as long as the brothers of the Green Sky Alliance come, they must be treated as family. Therefore, the two of you must not be courteous with me. Please feel free to stay here. All right, thank you. The two of them looked at each other, then followed after head shopkeeper Ian. They really had no other choice now. The only thing they could hope for was that Boss Chio would keep his promise. Otherwise, they would be at the end of their rope, without ammunition and food. They were afraid that only death would be left for them. Head shopkeeper Ian brought the two of them to the back of the residence. They walked along the walkway until they arrived at a moon door. He led the two of them through the moon door. This was an exquisite garden. The inside of the garden looked flat and flat. There was no lake, no mountain rocks, and even the trees looked frail. It didn't look like a place that could hide people. The two of them were extremely nervous. They stared at head shopkeeper Yin's back warily, not daring to step forward. Head shopkeeper Yin noticed that the two of them had slowed down their pace, but he didn't pay them any mind. He walked along the stone path until he was next to a shrub. He crouched down and groped around on the ground for a moment, as if he had triggered some sort of mechanism. As he fiddled with it, he could faintly hear the sound of machinery turning. A water tank in the corner of the backyard slowly moved aside, revealing an entrance that could fit one person. Follow me. Head shopkeeper Ian walked to the entrance of the cave. The two of them couldn't help but be astonished. They secretly thought that this 4-channel number really had some skill. Who would have thought that they would build such a secret place in a little flower garden that looked like a corridor in the inner residence? Feeling relieved, the two of them walked to the side of the cave and tried to look down. They could vaguely see a light inside. Head shopkeeper Ian smiled. Our boss specially prepared this place. It's well ventilated. There's also enough food and water stored inside for 10 days. It's just that it'll be very boring to stay inside. Also, if you want to come out, I'll have to activate the mechanism. Otherwise, you've seen that water tank, it won't budge from below. Shi Feng and Lu Xiong looked at each other again. Compared to the situation where they were chased outside and had nowhere to run, the conditions here were already very good. Besides, they couldn't think of any other way besides trusting Boss Chio. Shi Feng said, "All right, I know. Head shopkeeper, just don't forget that us brothers are still down there." I won't. Our boss specially instructed us to take care of our brothers. How could we forget? If nothing unexpected happens, I'll come every evening to bring you two enough food and wine for the day. There won't be any shortage of chicken, duck, or fish. There's bedding and the like inside. Just use it if it gets cold. When the two of them heard that they didn't need to eat biscuits, they were even happier. They nodded and burrowed into the tunnel like they were pounding garlic. After the two of them went down, they first looked around and found that it was just as head shopkeeper Ian said. There were 2 oil lamps lit and a wooden bed big enough to accommodate 4 people sleeping side by side was indeed covered with bedding. Although the space was cramped, the environment was much better than they had imagined. We'll be staying here. Many thanks, head shopkeeper. The two of them raised their heads to express their thanks. Head shopkeeper Ian smiled and shook his head. No need to be so polite. You two are friends of our boss. Oh right, there's one more thing you two must be careful about. You must speak softly. The two of them looked serious and nodded solemnly. Yes, we understand. Head shopkeeper Ian cupped his hands at the two of them. The two of them also raised their heads and cupped their hands at head shopkeeper Ian, their eyes filled with gratitude. Following a series of soft mechanical sounds, the water tank filled with water slowly moved back to its original position, gradually covering the entrance of the tunnel. When the sound of footsteps faded away, the two brothers let out a long sigh of relief and sat down on the bed to relax. They were saved. After head shopkeeper Ian left, he didn't dare to send someone to tell Qin Yining. He thought that since Wang Fei had sent someone to inform him, she must have predicted this would happen. Thinking about it, he increasingly felt that Wang Fei's foresight was godly. The female Zhuge Liang was still alive. Qin Yining sent Ji Yun to pass the message and then calmly grounded herself at home. The materials she had chosen were delivered one after another. She first made shoes and chairs for Pang Xiao. Then she fantasized about how much taller Zhao Gu and Han Gu had grown. She also cut clothes for them. A few days passed like this. Her days were still leisurely and tranquil, but the search in the city had reached its climax. Pang Zhao's subordinates were certain that they had found 4 people at the time, but they had only killed 2 of them. The other 2 could not be found no matter how hard they tried. Pang Xiao did not allow Jinghu Wei and the guards of the Wang Fu to retreat. He continued to search in and around the city. Wang Yi, if we continue to search like this, I'm afraid that the Yamen will have some opinions. Xia Yi suggested, should we reduce the number of people and change to security? Originally, Pang Xiao had felt that such a search would make the people nervous. But when Xia Yi said that the Yamen would have opinions, his idea of reducing the number of people was immediately dispelled. Who made the decisions in the Yamen? Of course, it was the district magistrate. Lu Heng was the district magistrate now. If he was unhappy, Pang Xiao would feel the most comfortable. No matter. Lu Heng does not dare to do anything to this king. After Mu Jinghu returned, he had been accompanying Pang Xiao closely. Hearing this, he smiled and said, "Yes, I will follow." Chapter 951. Did Wang Yi continue to search for people today? Qin Yining lowered her head as she threaded the needle and casually asked the person beside her. Ji Yun and Bing Tang answered in unison, yes. The 2 looked at each other and smiled. Ji Yun continued, today, I heard from Tang Xiu that Sir Xia persuaded Wang Yi to restrain himself for the time being so that Zhong Yibo wouldn't misunderstand that we were provoking him. However, Wang Yi refused to listen. Huzi also said the same thing. Wang Yi is now filled with anger because he wants to avenge the princess consort. Previously, they found 4 people and killed 2. There were 2 left, but they couldn't find them. Wang Yi is now angry because of these 2 people. Didn't Wang Yi say when he came back yesterday that those 2 people could grow wings and fly away? The 2 maidservants couldn't help but laugh. Qin Yining also laughed, how can people grow wings and fly away? Of course they can't. Qin Yining finally experienced shopkeeper Yin's method of hiding people. Even with so many Jinghu Wei, they couldn't find anything. When she turned around and saw Qiu Feishan, she really should be grateful. Qin Yining pressed the needle against her temples and continued to sew. However, she suddenly thought of something and her hands slowed down. You said that your majesty arranged for Zhong Yibo to be the county magistrate and Wang Yi to be the imperial envoy to supervise the construction of the imperial mausoleum. Between the 2 of them, who is more powerful in Huichuan? Ji Yun and Bing Tang were both stunned. Bing Tang analyzed, according to the title, Wang Yi is naturally more powerful. According to the official position, Wang Yi is more powerful as the imperial envoy. Qin Yining said, that's about the construction of the imperial mausoleum. However, your majesty hasn't given us any money yet and the construction of the imperial mausoleum hasn't started yet. Therefore, let's not talk about the construction of the imperial mausoleum for now. In Huichuan County, the person who manages all the affairs of the Yamen should be the county magistrate. You're right. Ji Yun nodded. What did Wang Fei think of? Qin Yining shook his head and said, I'm thinking that Wang Yi ordered more than 100 Jinghu Wei and the guards of the Wang residents to search the city as if they were searching their own backyard. It's only been a day or 2, but after so many days, I'm afraid they're already in a state of panic. Lu Heng was born in an aristocratic family and had been favored by the heavens since he was young. He was quite arrogant. Would he accept Wang Ye's approach so easily? Bing Tang and Ji Yun shook their heads in unison. Of course not. Lu Heng had a natural arrogance. That arrogance had nothing to do with what he wore or what he did. Even when he was in dire straits, he looked completely different from ordinary people. Qin Yining rubbed his brows and said, therefore, in my opinion, Zhong Yibo will definitely do something against Wang Yi. However, it's impossible for him to win in terms of martial arts. Now that your majesty has arranged for him to leave the capital, it's obvious that he's losing the emperor's trust. It's impossible for him to stroke the tiger's whiskers at this time. Therefore, the method of impeaching Wang Yi won't be effective immediately. Ji Yun and Bing Tang listened quietly. Qin Yining thought for a long time and finally came to a conclusion. Therefore, I think that Zhong Yibo will suppress Wang Yi financially. Wang Fei, what do you mean? The Lu family is huge and has a complicated network of relationships. The wealth they have is unimaginable to us. When the family first moved to the capital, even my father had to consider avoiding them. Therefore, I think that when the children of aristocratic families are angered, using money to throw people at them should be the most common method. But we don't have anything to use money for now. We need to ask the Lu family for help. What I mean isn't Wang Yi arranging for people to search for them? These people are naturally a thorn in Zhong Yibo's side. Therefore, he only needs to monopolize the food in the city so that these people don't have anything to eat. Naturally, they won't have the energy to search for them. At the same time, they can also show Wang Yi who's boss. Ji Yun and Bing Tang were a little nervous when they heard this. Then what should we do? Qin Yining put down the work in his hands. He stood up and massaged his fingers as he said hesitantly, it's actually very easy to solve. Ji Yun. Ji Yun immediately responded and walked to Qin Yining's side. Qin Yining said in a low voice, go find shopkeeper Yin and tell him. Ji Yun nodded when she heard this. Yes, this servant understands. But this is just your guess. What if the preparations you made don't come in handy? It's fine. Look at the weather. How long has it been raining? It hasn't stopped since we left the capital. Sooner or later, it will come in handy. Ji Yun nodded gravely when she heard this. Just as Ji Yun went out again to help Qin Yining purchase, in the Lu residence, Lu Heng stood by the window with his hands clasped behind his back with a solemn expression. Duke, the city is still in a state of panic today. Prince Zhongshuan's troops are searching everywhere. It seems like they're digging 3 feet into the ground. Our people have tried to negotiate with them several times, but the people from the prince's residence are all brimming with killing intent. Just a glare from them is enough to make our people panic. Lu Heng shook his head and his lips curled into a mocking smile. How much self-restraint do you expect a bumpkin to have? He's already so arrogant with just a few soldiers. Since he's unwilling to listen to my advice, then don't blame me for sweeping away his dignity. Duke, what do you mean? Have our people go out and search all the shops in the area. Forbid them from providing food to the people in the prince's residence. I'd like to see if he can lead soldiers who don't have enough to eat no matter how powerful he is. Yes, Duke. The subordinate retreated excitedly. Lu Heng couldn't help but rub his hands together. He'd like to see how those soldiers from the prince's residence would cause trouble when they were all starving. When that time came, Peng Zhishi would be in a terrible fix and unable to do anything. He'd also let Qin Yining see what kind of boorish man she'd married. At the beginning of June, the rain still showed no signs of stopping. The entire Huichuan County seemed to have been abandoned in a ditch. Everywhere was wet and muddy. Because of this, the crops didn't grow well. The ordinary people were gloomy and began to save on food. The price of food at the grain store also began to rise. It was more than twice the usual price. The people were hesitant to eat food. The soldiers from the prince's residence didn't eat food. However, Huzi, who was in charge of purchasing today, didn't manage to buy anything. Wang Yi, the grain store in the city has gone too far. I clearly saw that they had stored food, but they refused to sell it. They were only willing to sell a small portion that was mixed with sand. The price was still twice the previous price. When I tried to reason with them, they were so noisy that we almost started a fight. Chapter 952. Pang Xiao, Mu Jinghu, Xiaoyu, and Su Weiji quietly listened to Huzi's words and fell into deep thought. Su Weiji said, "This is obviously done on purpose. The shopkeepers of those grain stores have already made an agreement. It's not just to drive up the prices, but more like it's to go against us. Obviously, someone is plotting against me behind my back." Pang Xiao laughed. "The things I've done recently have made some people unhappy. So he came up with such a bad idea. He wants to starve my soldiers and then laugh at me." Mu Jinghu said, "The only one who can do this must be Zhong Yiba." "Yes." Pang Xiao laughed, "He's really interesting. He doesn't know our background, but he dares to use such a method to control my people." Mu Jinghu laughed mockingly. If he was a poor man in the past, he would be the most stingy. He couldn't even bear to make new clothes. Now, Qiu Feishan would send him things all day long, fearing that he wouldn't have enough money. His concept of gold and silver was not as deep as before, and he also had a feeling of his own business is there as a backing towards the four-way connection. "It's okay, I'll tell Shanshan to send you food." Xiaoyu and Su Weiji laughed, "With Boss Zhou here, we don't have to worry about food. It's just that it's been raining heavily recently. I read the court bulletin, the whole country, especially the south, is suffering from a serious disaster. The land of fish and rice has now become a swamp. Transporting food is one thing, but we don't know what the situation is like in the flooded areas. Moreover, the transportation time will be very long." Wang Ye's worries are not without reason. Xiaoyu's expression was also a little more worried. Su Weiji sighed, "What's wrong with the weather? I remember that it started to rain when we left the capital at the end of April. I thought that the rain would stop when we reached Huichuan County, but who knew that it's been raining for the entire May? No crop can withstand so much rain. Yes, the imperial court has been in troubled times in the past 2 years. Wars have been going on for years. Natural and man-made disasters have caused the national treasury to be empty. In order to support the wars, Your Majesty had to pay a lot of exorbitant taxes. Now that the war is finally over, the Titan issue has been resolved, and the disaster caused by the Earth Dragon has passed, but now there is a flood." Xiaoyu shook her head helplessly. "I feel sorry for the innocent people. Now that they've been caught up in this disaster, it's hard for them to survive." Hearing this, everyone could not help but sigh. Everyone's mood was extremely heavy. What Xiaoyu said was actually what Pang Xiao was worried about. Although he was competing with Li Qitian, the common people were innocent. With such a problem occurring under Li Qitian's rule, it was hard to guarantee that no one would scold him for being a fatuous ruler. However, Pang Xiao was not happy about it at all. "I can only hope that fewer people will die this time." Pang Xiao sighed helplessly. Huzi said, "Wang Yi, don't worry about others for now. If the grain is transported over a long distance, what are we going to eat in between?" Pang Xiao was pulled back to reality by Huzi's question. He thought for a while and said, "We can only contact Si Tong and ask them to speed up." Mu Jinghu stood up and said, "Let me handle this." Pang Xiao laughed. "That's good too. You are the other boss of Si Tong after all." Mu Jinghu shook his head. I'm not a boss. Shanshan gave me a token so that I can do whatever I want when I encounter a problem. He also had a Chuan pass similar to Qin Yining's in his hand. Everyone in the four-way pass recognized it. Seeing the pass was like seeing the owner, so it was convenient for him to go to the four-way pass to do things. Pang Xiao said, then I'll ask Huzi to go with you. If you encounter any problems, you can pass on a message. That's good too. Mu Jinghu and Huzi quickly walked out of the door. Pang Xiao, Xiaoyu, and Su Weiji were discussing how to proceed with the search. Who knew that Mu Jinghu and Huzi would rush back in less than an hour after they left? What's the matter? Pang Xiao was startled by their hasty appearance. He was worried that something might have happened. Huzi shook his head and smiled. No, it's not that. Mu Jinghu stared at Pang Xiao with an unfathomable expression. We just arrived at Xitong and the manager was asking people to move something. I was worried that he didn't recognize me, so I used the token and asked about the situation. They were moving grain. Oh. Pang Xiao smiled. Xitong does all kinds of business. It's normal for them to transport grain. That's right. But the manager said that the grain was ordered by Wang Fei. That's not normal. Huzi laughed. He said that Wang Fei had her personal maidservant purchase the grain. She told Xitong to temporarily keep the grain and pay after Wang Fei was released from confinement. You said that Sister Yi ordered the grain. That's right. Mu Gongzi and I heard it together. How can it be fake? Mu Jinghu confirmed, that's true. Xiaoyu thought for a moment, then stroked his beard and smiled. That's true. Did Wang Fei predict that we would be short on grain? Wang Fei is resourceful and good at scheming. She might have already seen through something and made this decision. Su Weiji smiled. Wang Yi, why don't you invite Wang Fei here to explain the reason? This old man is very curious. How did Wang Fei think of ordering the grain first? At this time, Pang Xiao was still shocked by Qin Yining's actions. His heart felt as though it had been brushed by the softest feather, soft and numb. The gentleness in his eyes almost turned into spring water. He cleared his throat and said, that's fine. Pang Xiao stood, I'll go invite Wang Fei out. You all rest first. Xiaoyu, Su Weiji and Huzi all smiled and nodded. Mu Jinghu did not hesitate to follow Pang Xiao into the inner residence. They passed through the drooping flower door and walked along the corridor to the main room. The servant girls who were working outside naturally did not need to guard the door on a rainy day. So when Pang Xiao lifted the curtain and entered the room, no one paid their respects. Only the servant girl who was guarding outside saw Pang Xiao return and bowed respectfully. Wang Yi. N. Pang Xiao quickly walked into the inner room. Where is Wang Fei? Wang Fei and the older sisters are doing needlework. Got it. Pang Xiao quickly walked into the inner room. Mu Jinghu sat down in the outer room and accepted the tea that the servant girl brought over. Qin Yining was bent over the table and seemed to be drawing flowers. At home, she did not wear any makeup and her hair was loosely tied up. She was wearing a homely, honey-colored robe. Her sleeves were rolled up, revealing her white and slender wrists. The jade bracelet on her wrist swayed slightly as she drew. Pang Xiao's heart almost melted into a puddle of sugar water. Sister Yi. You're back. Have you eaten? Qin Yining put down her brush and smiled as she straightened her sleeves. Chapter 953. When she heard Pang Xiao's question, Qin Yining's heart skipped a beat. However, she had always been calm in the face of danger. She only needed to analyze Pang Xiao's expression to know that he was not here to denounce her. His gaze was so focused that it was as if he wanted to swallow her whole. Qin Yining said shyly, since the gentlemen want to hear it, I naturally have to go out with you. Okay. Help your master wear an extra cloak. It's very windy outside. Okay. Ji Yun and Bing Tang immediately went to open the suitcase and help Qin Yining change. Pang Xiao admired the beauty changing while chatting with her. Are you tired of staying at home? If you don't like it, I'll take you out to play another day. Okay. It's just that the rain hasn't stopped. Even if we go out to play, we won't be able to enjoy ourselves to the fullest. Pang Xiao sighed. Qin Yining put on the cloak and went forward to hold Pang Xiao's arm. Let's go. The moment they went out, they saw Mu Jinghu drinking tea in the outer room. Qin Yining smiled and said, I asked them to prepare black chicken soup. Let's eat it together tonight. Okay. Mu Jinghu readily agreed. The few of them chatted and laughed as they walked forward. Qin Yining was afraid that her embroidered shoes would get wet, so she wore a pair of wooden clogs over her embroidered shoes. The clogs made a clacking sound as she walked. Pang Xiao felt very comfortable even when he heard her footsteps. It was as if her footsteps were stepping on his heart. When they reached the front, the few of them greeted each other and sat down according to their status. Xia Yu was more familiar with Qin Yining, so she smiled and asked, Princess Consort, did you buy food from Sidong's shop? Qin Yining smiled and said, yes. Wang Yi was searching for fugitives, and I thought that with Zhong Yibo's personality, he wouldn't allow anyone to challenge his authority. Therefore, I guessed that if he wasn't satisfied, he would use some method to deal with us. So Princess Consort guessed that he would control the grain. Qin Yining nodded. Not only that, I'm thinking that since their family can sell official positions and titles, they might even make money from the national disaster to drive up the price of rice. So I thought, whether I guessed correctly or not, the price of food in the future will definitely not be like this. It's not a big deal to take precautions early. She looked at Pang Xiao with her bright eyes, as if asking for Pang Xiao's opinion. Pang Xiao smiled and said, thanks to your godlike foresight, we failed to buy the army rations today. Really? Then we can use this batch of food as a substitute. Huzi laughed and said, Princess Consort, it's all thanks to you that we are able to eat now. When the brothers find out later, they will definitely be grateful to you. I just guessed correctly. I won't pay for the food. Your Wang Yi is still in charge of your food. Qin Yining took away all the credit, causing everyone present to laugh. Pang Xiao didn't know whether to laugh or cry and said, don't worry, how could I be greedy for your money? I should be the one taking the money. Qin Yining smiled and said, actually, I didn't just buy a small amount of food for everyone in the food to eat. I also bought a lot of food through Manager Ian of the four-way shop. It's just that it's a long journey, so it can't be transported over in a short time. Pang Xiao smiled and sighed as she shook her head. You're so thoughtful. Xia Yu said, Princess Consort has been paying attention to the court bulletin since the first day she arrived in Huichuan County. With Princess Consort's intelligence and the fact that she has her own business, she naturally knows what to prepare when. Qin Yining smiled and said, it's not that exaggerated. I just thought of something on the spur of the moment and did it willfully. However, this time, the purchase of military food failed. Huichuan County has 2 large shops and a few small shops. Why aren't they willing to sell the food to us? I'm 100% sure that Zhong Yibo did something behind the scenes. I've always been on guard against him, but now that he's really done something, we can't be soft persimmons that he can bully. Everyone nodded repeatedly. Pang Xiao smiled and said, compared to you, I'm too reckless. Sister Yi, how do you think we should deal with him? I'll listen to you. Actually, when Qin Yining said that he had always been on guard against Lu Heng, Peng Xiao felt more satisfied than if she had eaten 10 jars of honey. She immediately forgot about being grounded. Qin Yining said, "They have the intention of driving up the price of food. How can the commoners have so much money to eat such expensive food? Although the price of this batch of food that I asked shopkeeper Ian to help me purchase is more expensive than before, it's still cheaper than the price that they raised by several times. Therefore, I plan to let the four-way shop sell this batch of food at a price that won't make a loss." Oh. Su Weiji smiled and said, "This is a good opportunity to make a fortune. Will the four-way shop be willing?" Mu Jinghu said, "They'll be willing. Shanshan definitely won't object." With Mu Jinghu around, his words could be counted. Qin Yining said, "A gentleman's desire for wealth is justified. I think that if the rain continues, I'm afraid that not long after, the entire Dezhou won't have enough food to eat, especially in the south. A large part of my land is in the south. Now that there's a flood, the land that originally had a good harvest will probably have no harvest this year. If it's already like this for me, I don't know what will happen to the commoners. When the country is in danger, it's impossible to make a fortune. Let the four-way shop sell their food as usual. This will also help to balance out the price of food in Huichuan County. You have to know that it's raining heavily for days. Even the most airtight storehouses will be damp. After being damp, the food will become moldy. Their prices are so high. If the food becomes moldy, they won't have the face to sell it even if they want to, right? Princess Consort, you're right." Su Weiji said with admiration, "Princess Consort, you really take one step and think 10 steps ahead. In this way, those people who drive up the price of food will see that the four-way shop's food is selling so quickly, while their food may become moldy in their hands. They will definitely resent the people who instigated them behind the scenes." Qin Yining nodded with a smile, "That's right." Xiaoyu said, "What a good chain of plans. Princess Consort's method is very good." She turned to look at Pang Xiao, Wang Yi. "Princess Consort is such a heroine. It's a waste of her talent to confine her to embroider in the inner residence. Don't let Princess Consort be wronged. Release her freedom and allow her to come and go as she pleases." Speaking to this point, Xia Yu spread her hands. "Look, even if Princess Consort is confined, hasn't she still done a lot of things?" Pang Xiao laughed, "Isn't that so? Ji Yun always goes out to buy things for you. I didn't think that he would also help you pass on a message." Qin Yining felt a bit guilty. After all, it was because Ji Yun helped pass on a message that she was able to successfully entrust the two people to head shopkeeper Ian and hide them. She didn't have to save these two people who had bad intentions. It was just that if these two people stayed, she felt that they might be of use one day in the future. Chapter 954. Qin Yining smiled. "I haven't finished tailoring the clothes for you recently. Besides, it's very wet and cold outside. I'm not willing to go out and walk even if you want me to." When she said this, she was jokingly giving Pang Xiao a soft rebuff. Even though Pang Xiao grounded her for her own good. But she wasn't a woman who could be easily manipulated by others. One sentence and she was not allowed to go out twice. Now, another sentence and she was allowed to go out, but she was unwilling to go out. Pang Xiao didn't know whether to laugh or cry at this soft rebuff. Xiaoyu, Su Weiji, and the others all laughed out loud. Mu Jinghu laughed until he was out of breath. "That's right. You should teach this little fox a lesson. We didn't even go out. Why should we not go out just because he said so? Now you want to pretend that nothing happened with just one sentence. Hey, blockhead, you're not kind." Pang Xiao grabbed Mu Jinghu's shoulders and punched him. The next time you make your wife angry, I won't help you come up with ideas. Everyone in the room roared with laughter. Su Weiji laughed until his beard trembled. He didn't forget to give Pang Xiao an idea. Wang Yi, why don't you properly apologize to Princess Consort? That's right. Princess Consort, she didn't do anything wrong. From the start, she did it for your good. She took so many risks for you. Pat your own conscience and tell me, how many women can do this for their husband? But look at you. Without saying anything, you grounded her out of anger. What you did this time was wrong. Huzi had been with Pang Xiao for the longest time. Now that the atmosphere was light, he quickly spoke up to express Qin Yining's injustice. Bing Tang had told him behind his back countless times that Wang Yi had gone overboard by grounding Wang Fei. He himself also felt that Wang Fei was wrongly grounded. Xia Yu also said, many people know that Wang Fei has been grounded. Just a few days ago, I heard people talking about it. Maybe Zhong Yibo Furen came to make trouble for Wang Fei because she heard that Wang Fei was grounded, so she came to gloat. After hearing what they said, Pang Xiao felt that he had committed a great sin. He straightened his expression and stood up to greet Qin Yining. Sister Yi, it's my fault this time. Qin Yining hurriedly moved aside and refused his salute. He returned the salute with a smile and said, there's no right or wrong between husband and wife. I know you're doing this for my safety. Besides, I live a very comfortable life every day. It doesn't matter if I'm grounded or not. I was just teasing you just now. Pang Xiao laughed and said, you don't know. When you teased me, I sweated more than I did in a battle. He wiped the back of his neck for Qin Yining to see. As expected, his palms were sweaty. When they saw this, they all laughed again. The atmosphere in the Wang Fu was relaxed and cheerful. The atmosphere in the Lu Fu was also very cheerful today. Count, you don't know. Today, those soldiers didn't manage to buy any grain. They were very anxious. I've never seen such a dispirited face. Head shopkeeper Lu of Maoxing Grain Company smiled flatteringly. Head shopkeeper Cui of Huichuan Grain Company also said attentively, that's right. Our grain company is the same. I think that if this continues, they won't be able to last 2 days. More than 100 young men are crying out in hunger. That scene, TSK. The shopkeepers of the other grain stores didn't even have a chance to speak to Lu Heng. Right now, they could only agree. Lu Heng smiled and said, this is all thanks to everyone's cooperation. We don't dare. Everyone said in unison. Lu Heng said, although I have a noble title and am just a low-ranking official, my Lu family is a merchant family. Everyone knows that. Now that it's raining, the price of grain is bound to rise. Yes, if we all act in unison, we can take advantage of this opportunity to make a lot of money. Head shopkeeper Cui smiled and said, we also have to thank you for your reminder. You gave us a chance to work together. Lu Heng smiled and waved his hand. Then, the corners of his lips gradually drooped and he sighed. It's a pity that the shopkeeper of Si Tong store is busy today. Si Tong store hadn't been established in Huichuan County for long, but Si Tong store was very big in the south. The Lu family had long heard about it. Today, they wanted to take the opportunity to contact them. However, after sending the invitation, the shopkeeper said that he was busy and couldn't leave. He would visit another day. Lu Heng knew that the shopkeeper was rejecting him. Naturally, he was unhappy. However, although he was displeased, he did not go to the extent of being calculative. After all, to the head of the Lu family, a small shopkeeper of the four-way branch was no different from an ant. He really did not take it to heart. When they heard that Lu Heng was unhappy with Si Tong store, head shopkeeper Cui, head shopkeeper Lu, and the others echoed. Si Tong's store hasn't been in Huichuan County for long. I don't know how they became so arrogant. Sigh, Brother Chui, you don't know. Si Tong's store is very big in the south. They're big in the south. Do you think they can do the same in the north? The shopkeepers of the grain stores below all agreed with him. Lu Heng was very satisfied when he saw them pandering to his words. He climbed to this position step by step in order to be at the top. This kind of flattery made Lu Heng feel happy both physically and mentally. He even thought that it would be great if Qin Yining could see him like this. How could Qin Yining marry that country bumpkin Pang Jishi compare to him? Could it be that a century-old family couldn't compare to an upstart like Pang Jishi? At the end of the day, Lu Heng still looked down on upstarts from the bottom of his heart. It wasn't just Pang Xiao. Even Ji Ziyu and the current emperor couldn't compare to the Lu family's foundation. The group of people chatted happily and took their leave at the right time. They promised that they would strictly adhere to the bottom line. No matter how much money the prince's residence offered, they were determined not to sell rice. Lu Heng smiled with satisfaction and ordered someone to send them off. When the reception pavilion returned to silence, Lu Heng's personal attendant, Lu Wenru, finally dared to come forward and say, "Master Lu, Madam is making a fuss again. She said that she wants to throw herself in." Lu Heng laughed. "She's really crying, making a fuss, and threatening to hang herself. If it weren't for your Majesty acting as a matchmaker, I really would have kicked the stool for her." Lu Wenru hadn't been following Lu Heng for long. He always felt that although the master of the house was gentle and amiable, his methods were unusually ruthless. Those in the Lu family who refused to be disciplined or who disagreed with Lu Heng's position as the master of the house all died very suddenly. Therefore, in front of Lu Heng, Lu Wenru always followed the principle of speaking less and doing more. If he could avoid talking about his master, he would try his best not to. Therefore, even though he heard Lu Heng's words, Lu Wenru didn't say much. He only said, "Master Lu, do you want to go and take a look?" Lu Heng thought for a moment. Of course, why wouldn't I? Lu Heng was now a little interested in Bian Ruhan. It wasn't because he admired her, but because he wanted to observe how this stupid woman was inferior to Qin Yining. Chapter 955. I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to live anymore. What's the point of living if you humiliate me like this? Don't stop me. Even the Count doesn't pity me and wants me to die. Madam, madam, don't scare this old servant. Madam, please come down quickly. The bedroom was in a mess. The servants in the rear residence heard the commotion and were curious, but they didn't dare to investigate. They could only suppress the churning desire in their hearts and secretly discuss it when they weren't doing their jobs. However, everyone thought in their hearts, the Count's wife is too good at causing trouble. Luckily, the Count has a good temper. If it were another family with such a troublesome daughter-in-law, they probably wouldn't be able to stand it and would divorce her long ago. Luckily, the Count's wife came from a good family and had a cousin who was a concubine. Otherwise, everyone was thinking about it when they suddenly heard a voice. They saw the Count wearing a sky-blue cloak and holding an oil paper umbrella as he slowly walked over with his entourage. His steps were steady, handsome, and gentle. His every movement exuded an air of nobility. To think that such a handsome, rich, and powerful earl would marry such a daughter-in-law, everyone sighed in their hearts. Count. Everyone bowed. Lu Heng smiled and nodded, indicating for everyone to rise. They walked all the way to the front door of the main room and stood still. Bian Ruhan's cries were sharp to the point of being ear-piercing. The servants outside kept quiet out of fear and hid in the corridor, not daring to raise their heads. The servants in the room were still pleading, "Madam, please cherish your good days. The Count only asked you to stay in the residence to recuperate. It's always raining outside, so it's meaningless for you to go out. Why can't you understand the Count's feelings? That's right, madam. Please come down quickly. This servant will kowtow to you. I won't. He still has that slut in his heart, so he always looks down on me. How am I worse than that slut? Is my family background inferior to hers, or is my appearance inferior to hers? She bullied me, and when I returned home, not only was I not comforted, he even grounded me to vent his anger on that bitch. What's the point of living such a life? I don't want to live anymore. I want to go to the netherworld and complain to Yan Wangyi. I want Yan Wangyi to punish that bitch Qin. This servant begs you, madam. Lu Heng was overjoyed when he heard this. The house was livelier than a theater. Bian Ruhan's singing was even more exciting than the actors in the theater. Lu Heng listened for a while before he coughed. The room fell silent. Madam, uncle is back. Please come down quickly. Uncle is so good to you. You can't do this. I don't want to live anymore. I don't want to live anymore. Mother, farewell. I was forced to death by that bitch Qin. Bang! The sound of a stool being overturned came from inside the room. Immediately, the servant screamed, Madam, madam. Lu Heng placed the paper umbrella in the corridor and didn't enter. He just stood in front of the door with his arms crossed. He didn't lift the curtain or say a word. He wanted to see if Bian Ruhan would really hang herself if he didn't go in. At this moment, Bian Ruhan kicked the stool away. The wet nurse quickly grabbed her legs, and another servant girl lifted her legs up. Bian Ruhan grabbed the white silk with both hands and tried her best to stretch her neck upwards. She held her breath and was about to roll her eyes. She made gasping sounds in her throat and wanted to struggle in pain. However, she considered that if she moved her legs, the people below wouldn't be able to lift her anymore. What was Lu Heng thinking? He was already standing outside the room and coughing. Why wasn't he coming in? Why wasn't he coming in? Bian Ruhan's arms soon lost their strength, and her neck was forced to rest on the white silk. Unfortunately, the ones holding her up were all weak women, and the wet nurse and maidservant simply could not support Bian Ruhan's weight. Soon, she experienced what it meant to be suffocated. She tried her best to open her mouth and breathe. However, when her neck was really hanging, she realized that it was too late to regret. Even if there were people below holding her up, it was only a matter of time before she really hung herself. Bian Ruhan thought about many things at this moment. She even thought that the majority of those who had really succeeded in committing suicide might have regretted it after hanging themselves, but they couldn't save themselves. Her tears fell uncontrollably. Her exquisitely made-up face quickly became wet, but the person at the door didn't come in. Could it be that she heard wrong? Didn't Lu Heng come back? Then she kicked the stool too early. Bian Ruhan let her imagination run wild. She felt like a long time had passed. Finally, she heard the footsteps she had been waiting for. Lu Heng lifted the curtain and entered the room. He looked at the chaos in the room with his hands behind his back. What's going on? Duke, Duke. The wet nurse screamed like a pig, hurry, hurry and save madam. This servant can't hold on any longer. Lu Heng stared at Bian Ruhan, who was sticking her tongue out and rolling her eyes. He wanted to ignore her, but with so many people watching, he couldn't just let her die all of a sudden. He had no choice but to drag a stool over and step on it. Then, he hugged Bian Ruhan's legs and untied her from the stool. Bian Ruhan hugged Lu Heng's neck and cried out, "Why are you only back now? Why are you only back now?" Lu Heng placed her on the heated Kong bed by the window and sneered, "Why? Is Madame trying to hang herself for me to see? Burp. Bien Ruhan choked and let out a long burp. Lu Heng took 2 steps back in disgust. You went to the prince's mansion to cause trouble for no reason. What did I say to you when you returned? I only told you to rest in the mansion. It's raining heavily outside, so it's meaningless to go out. You're doing needlework and playing mahjong at home. What's wrong with you living like this? Did I hit you or scold you? Bien Ruhan's face was covered in tears and snot. She lowered her head and sobbed silently. Lu Heng continued, You've been crying and making trouble for the past few days. I don't want to blame you. You're still young. You can make trouble if you want to. There will be a time when you're tired of it and don't want to make trouble anymore. But today, you almost killed someone. Tell me, what did I do wrong to you? You hung yourself because you wanted your majesty to think that I was the one who killed you because I was unhappy with our marriage. Bien Ruhan sobbed even harder, You just don't like me. You just like that Qin bitch. Lu Heng's face darkened. What's the point of saying all these groundless accusations? Did you catch me having an affair with someone in bed? After you married into the family, did I take a concubine? Did I go to a brothel? Bien Ruhan didn't say anything. Lu Heng really didn't have any problems with this. It was her own jealousy that had caused such a commotion. Chapter 956. Uncle, please spare us. The maidservants knelt down and kowtowed repeatedly. Uncle, please spare us. We won't dare to do it again. We won't dare to do it again. They were just following orders and were implicated by Bien Ruhan. However, in Lu Heng's opinion, if Bien Ruhan did something stupid, even if they couldn't stop him, they could have told him first. As long as they were loyal to their male master, they wouldn't have let Bien Ruhan cause such a ruckus. Guards. Yes. Lu Heng ordered. Someone immediately responded from outside the door. Drag these incompetent people out. Give each of them 20 paddles and expel them from the residence. Yes, uncle. Lu Wenru calmly responded from outside the door, then called for the guards to come over. Uncle, please spare us. Madam, please intercede for us. Uncle, we won't dare to do it again. Uncle, please spare us. Lu Heng sat down at the head of the table with one hand on his knee and the other on the armrest of the chair. He asked, Do you know where this is? This is Huichuan County. Some of the brainless people answered. Some of the more sensible ones trembled and said, Yes, it's the uncle's residence. Then who am I? Lu Heng asked again. You are the uncle, the master of this residence. The wet nurse kowtowed again and again. Uncle, please spare us. This old servant really knows her mistake. It's just that, madam. I don't listen to excuses. Lu Heng lowered his eyes and said, You all came with madam and are loyal to her. I can understand that. However, all of you are mistaken about one thing. This is the Count's manor, and I am your master. All of you are wholeheartedly helping madam to cause trouble, causing madam to almost lose her life. I am only punishing each of you with 20 strokes of the cane instead of beating you to death. This is already very merciful. Your madam is of noble birth. Don't tell me that her fright can't be exchanged for your paddles. Everyone was at a loss for words. They looked at Bien Ruhan pleadingly. The meaning of the Earl's words was clear. In the end, the problem still fell on Bien Ruhan's fright. If Bien Ruhan was willing to say, no fright, at this moment, they would be saved. From the beginning, they had tried to persuade Bien Ruhan to stop her from pretending to hang herself, but Bien Ruhan refused to listen and insisted on teaching the Duke a lesson. Now, the Duke had not learned his lesson, and the madam had only been scolded a little, but they were going to lose their lives. Although the count had only said that they would be beaten 20 times and chased out of the manor, but on a rainy day, what was the difference between being beaten 20 times and being thrown into the heavy rain and then being thrown into the heavy rain and letting them die? Madam, please take into account that this servant is following your orders, please plead for leniency from the Earl. Some of the maidservants were so scared that they cried out loud. They went forward on their knees and hugged Bien Ruhan's leg, begging for mercy. Bien Ruhan's eyes flickered, and he unhappily kicked the maidservant away. What do you mean by following my orders? I didn't ask you to do anything. Lu Heng sneered at the side. His mockery made Bien Ruhan's face burn. He clearly knew everything. He was still scheming. Bien Ruhan stared at Lu Heng with tears in her eyes. She felt so wrong that she cried again. Lu Heng smiled and said, "What are you crying for?" What did I scold you for pretending to hang yourself and almost really hanging yourself in the end? What I punished was an insensible servant. You are my madam, so you are not wrong. No matter what you do, you are not wrong. The ones who are wrong are the servants. These people today, he pointed at the people in front of him one by one, if they died for your face. Ruhan, remember this. Bien Ruhan looked at the wet nurse and the maidservants who served her. What was engraved in her mind were their tearful faces and frightened eyes. Bien Ruhan couldn't bear to watch any longer. She frantically looked away. Lu Heng said, "Take them away." Lu Wenru obeyed and brought the servants and guards into the room. Because this was the main room of the madam of the house, the servants and Lu Wenru didn't dare to raise their heads. They dragged the kneeling maidservants out of the room like they were grabbing chickens. Soon, only Lu Heng and Bien Ruhan were left in the room. Soon after, the sound of planks cracking and screams of agony could be heard from the courtyard. Bien Ruhan trembled all over. Her face was pale as she covered her ears. Lu Heng grabbed her two slender wrists. Bien Ruhan frantically looked up at Lu Heng. Lu Heng smiled and said, "Listen, they all did it for you." Bien Ruhan shook her head repeatedly. Her hair was loose and her face was covered in tears. "I was wrong. I shouldn't have done this. I just felt wronged. I wanted to scare you and make you apologize to me. I don't want to be grounded. I know I was wrong. Please let them go." Lu Heng smiled and shook his head. "You had the chance to plead for mercy. But you refused to tell me the truth for your own sake, because of your own selfishness. Now that the planks are almost over, it's too late to plead for mercy. It's too late to confess. You better pray that they're lucky. Otherwise, if they really die, it's all your fault." Bien Ruhan's face was as white as paper. She had been pampered and spoiled since she was young. Although she was a little arrogant and had punished the servants and sold the maidservants, she had never killed so many people at once. Every sentence was her fault. It was all her fault. It was so heavy that she almost had a mental breakdown. Bien Ruhan screamed, "It wasn't me, it wasn't me. They're servants and I'm their master. It's only right for them to be loyal to me. I didn't harm them. Up to you." The sound of the planks outside stopped. Lu Heng also released his hand. "Are you going out to see them off?" Bien Ruhan trembled at the thought of the bloody scene in the heavy rain. She didn't dare to go out. Lu Heng shook his head and clicked his tongue. "You're really heartless. Who knows, maybe this farewell will be the last time you two meet. Your wet nurse is among them, right? Is she always loyal to you?" "Ah!" Bien Ruhan suddenly screamed. Lu Heng picked his ears and said, "All right, I won't nag you anymore. You can't make this mistake again. When your Majesty introduced you to me, he said that you were gentle and virtuous, and that you came from a prestigious family. Even if you give your majesty the wrong impression by putting on an act, it's best that you persevere. Otherwise, you'll be lying to your majesty. Don't worry, the position of Madame Jean Ebal will only be yours. As long as you manage the inner residence well, take care of yourself and don't cause trouble and embarrass yourself everywhere, I won't divorce you. Bien Ruhan choked and said in despair, You weren't like this to me in the past. You were very gentle to me. Is it because that slut came looking for you again? You don't want her anymore after you have her. Her man must have grounded her because she came looking for you. Chapter 957. Princess Consort, something happened at the Lu residence again. Bing Tang came in with a tray and said in a low voice, I don't know what's going on in their residence, but they punished a lot of servant girls and threw them into the rain after beating them with the plank. Our buyer passed by and asked about it, but the Lu family came out to stop them and forbade them from spreading the news. Qin Yining put down her embroidery and stretched her shoulders. Why do things like this always happen at their residence? It seems like the Lu family doesn't care about human lives at all. Isn't Wang Yi still searching the entire city for them? Go ahead and tell Wang Yi and ask him to send them to the hospital when they pass by the Lu residence. It's best if they can be saved. I'll pay for it. Yes. Bing Tang smiled. Princess Consort, you have a good heart. You're much better than Madame Bien. Qin Yining shook her head. These people really don't care about human lives. They were all raised by their parents and used to serve Madame Bien. Even if one or two of them wanted to assassinate Madame Bien, it's impossible for all of them to do it at once. Since they didn't make such a big mistake, why did they have to kill them? Even if they didn't want to use them, they could have just released them. Why did they have to beat them with the plank 20 times and throw them into the rain? This is really... Bing Tang sighed. Princess Consort, you've suffered since you were young. You know the fickleness of human nature and know how to respect others. But Madame Bien and Lu Boy are the kind of people who have been soaked in honey since they were born. They treat their servants like benches and can kill them as they wish if they don't want them. Qin Yining said, quickly go and tell them. Maybe they can save a few more. Got it. Bing Tang quickly walked forward to pass the message. Bing Tang passed the message to Pang Xiao. Pang Xiao only thought for a moment before agreeing. Not long after, the elite tiger guards arrived at the vicinity of the Lu mansion. Regardless of what the guards of the Lu mansion said, they directly carried the unconscious maids and women to the clinic. It didn't take long for Lu Heng to get the news. He sneered and said, Tisk, he's showing off his benevolence. Meddling in other people's business. They're so hungry that they're crying out. I haven't thought of how to get food for them to eat yet they're meddling in other people's affairs. Lu Wenru lowered his eyes and quietly listened to the instructions, not daring to say anything. Lu Heng asked, did the shopkeeper of the grain and rice shop reply today? Replying to the Earl, not yet. Lu Heng rubbed his fingers impatiently. It was really annoying that the plan he had decided on had not been carried out successfully. In the afternoon, head shopkeeper Cui of Huichuan Grain Company and head shopkeeper Lu of Maoxing Grain Company noticed something unusual. A straw shed was built in front of the Huichuan County Sidong branch and they were starting to sell grain. The price was only slightly higher than before, and the grain was not mixed with sand. However, they had a rule that each person could only buy grain once a day, and they could only buy half a kilogram each time. Even so, the people of Huichuan County spread the news from mouth to mouth, and everyone was overjoyed. The workers of the Sidong branch were in full swing, and the people were still discussing. Can you sell me more? I still have my old parents at home. In such a situation, as long as they were sure that the other party was not lying, the workers would sell more to him. They even explained, "Brother, don't be angry, we're just worried. You know, the price of grain in Huichuan County has more than doubled, and we're the only one who's still selling at the market price. Our boss is afraid that some black-hearted people will come here to buy rice and increase the price when they return." Yes, brother, I understand. The man who bought half a kilogram of rice nodded repeatedly. The sitong branch is good. Sighed, although we're transporting goods, the idea of selling rice at the market price was discussed by the Prince Zhongshuan and our boss. The princess consort even paid for the difference in price. Is that so? The people were shocked. The Prince Zhongshuan is a good person. If it weren't for the Prince Zhongshuan's intercession, many people would have been arrested. That's right, Wang Yi is also a good person. In order to catch thieves, he has the guards of the Wang residence patrol all day. Now, we don't have to worry even if we don't close the door at night. It's a pity that Wang Yi and the princess consort are such good people, but they're always being bullied. Sigh, this is what they mean by kind people get bullied. The people discussed animatedly, and these words were heard by head shopkeeper Cui and head shopkeeper Liu. The two of them looked at each other, and there was a hint of fear in their eyes. What should we do? Is the sitong branch selling grain? If the sitong branch sells grain, what should we do? No, let's go ask the Duke. The two of them hurriedly ran to the Liu residence. Not long after they arrived at the Liu residence, the shopkeepers of the other grain stores also hurried over. Liu Heng met everyone in the front hall. When he heard the reason why the sitong branch had started selling grain, his expression darkened. Are you sure it was the Prince Zhongshuan who contacted the sitong branch? Yes, that's what the sitong branch's staff said. Head shopkeeper Cui carefully observed Liu Heng's expression. No wonder the Wang residents didn't rush to buy grain from us. The princess consort has already joined forces with the sitong branch to sell grain. The guards in their residence definitely won't starve. It's just that I've already raised the price. Head shopkeeper Liu actually had some complaints, but he didn't dare to say more in front of Liu Heng. When Liu Heng first joined forces with them, it was also because they wanted to climb up the big tree that was Liu Heng. Now that there was a problem, if they dared to question Liu Heng, they were afraid that they would completely offend him. Liu Heng wasn't just a small county magistrate, nor was he just a Zhongyi Ba. He was the head of the Liu clan. If he offended the county magistrate, he wouldn't be able to survive in the county. If he offended the Liu clan, he wouldn't be able to survive in the north. Therefore, no one dared to make a sound at this moment. They carefully observed Liu Heng's expression. Liu Heng's originally tense expression suddenly relaxed. His gaze was gentle, and the corners of his lips were curled up in a smile. So it was her doing. How did she think of transporting grain? Could it be that when that brute Pang Zhishi sent people to search the entire city, she had already started contacting people to buy grain? Did she calculate that Pang Zhishi's actions were too big and would definitely annoy him? Was she afraid that he would take away the grain from her brute's troops? This intelligent woman, she was truly too convincing, making it hard for him to let her go. How fortunate was Pang Zhishi to be able to marry such an intelligent woman. Liu Heng couldn't suppress the throbbing in his heart, especially when compared to Bian Ruhan's stupid appearance. Qin Yining's methods could be said to have stunned Liu Heng. It was just like when Qin Yining used the family's treasure map to make him run in circles, but he couldn't get angry at all. Now, he couldn't get angry at all. Because his opponent was Qin Yining, even his anger became sweet. However, he knew that these people were already dissatisfied with him. Chapter 958. Liu Heng's normal complaint caused all the dissatisfied head shopkeepers to tremble in fear. They reminded themselves not to forget who the other party was. It was fine to vent their emotions, but the consequences were not something they could bear. They had only raised the price of grain so high because they listened to Lu Heng. Now that they were compared to the four-way shop, they became unscrupulous and unscrupulous merchants. Isn't that so? It's all the four-way shop's fault for being so unsociable, head shopkeeper Chui said sincerely. Lu Heng asked, now that the four-way shop is selling grain at that price, what are your plans? Master Lu, what do you think? Head shopkeeper Lu asked with the list in his hand. Lu Heng said, what do you think? If we don't lower the price, we can only think of a way to store it carefully. If we want to sell it, we have to at least sell it at the same price as the four-way shop. The logic was simple, but to suddenly lower the price when they were selling grain at such a high price was like cutting meat with a knife. I don't know how the four-way shop is so resourceful. Where did they get grain at such a price? Now that it's raining all over the country, it won't be like this when we import grain in the future. I want to see how long they can last. That's right. Our current purchase price can support selling at the same price as the four-way shop, but I'm afraid that it will be difficult if there's a flood in the future. After all, they were different from the four-way shop. They specialized in the grain business, while the four-way shop was just a side business. They were all smart people, and they were all businessmen. They understood the crux of the matter at a glance. They didn't seem to have the ability to compete with the four-way shop. Right now, the only one in their group who had the ability to compete with the four-way shop was the Lu family. Everyone looked at Lu Heng eagerly. Lu Heng smiled and stood up, saying, I still have official business to attend to today, so I'll have to excuse myself. Everyone was stunned. The matter hadn't been resolved, and the master wanted to see them out. What did this mean? It only meant that they had to pray for their own good in the future. They couldn't pester the master to think of a solution. Back then, it was true that they had listened to the Duke's suggestion and raised the price, but the other party didn't put a knife to their necks to force them. Now, even if they weren't convinced, there was nothing they could do. In addition, the other party was the head of the Lumen family, a count, and the local county magistrate. How could they have the guts to question him? Since they couldn't resist the power, everyone could only put on a smiling face. Head tavern keeper Chui stood up and said, Sigh, we've wasted so much of your time. It's our fault for not being considerate enough. That's right. We are extremely grateful that the Earl is willing to take the time to help us merchants come up with a countermeasure. Head shopkeeper Lu also said. After the rest of the people suppressed their shock and astonishment, they finally reacted and echoed, Thank you very much, Earl. Lu Heng smiled at their tactfulness and instructed Lu Wenru to see them out. Lu Wenru came out from the corner and sent them out of the front hall. After watching them leave, he shook his head quietly. Lu Wenru was very worried that Lu Heng would fly into a rage. During his time with the Earl, even if he wasn't always victorious, he rarely saw him lose. Whether it was in the business world or in the power struggle between families, the Earl's methods could be said to be iron-blooded. Now, he had stumbled in front of the Prince Zhongshuan's consort, a woman. Normally, who would be willing to give a man to a woman for free? Who wouldn't be ashamed? Lu Wenru stood in front of the door and hesitated for a long time before stepping into the room. He was determined to reduce his presence and find a corner to hide in. Unexpectedly, as soon as he entered the room, Lu Wenru saw Lu Heng slowly pacing around the room with his hands behind his back. His footsteps were light, and he had a smile on his face. He seemed to be in a good mood. Lu Heng glanced at Lu Wenru. Have they all been sent away? Yes, Earl. What do you think of their mood? Lu Wenru thought for a moment and said honestly, They're all angry but don't dare to say anything. Lu Heng chuckled and nodded, Yes, you hit the nail on the head. They're angry but don't dare to say anything. It doesn't matter. Don't look at how disappointed they were this time, thinking that they didn't earn anything. In the future, if you need them for anything, they'll take the initiative to come forward. Lu Wenru smiled and nodded, yes. Just now, when I saw you enter, I was stunned for a moment. Were you surprised that I didn't fly into a rage? Lu Wenru quickly shook his head, this little one doesn't dare. Lu Heng sneered, you're just too nervous and cautious. I don't mean to blame you. You're my personal attendant. Can't we chat? It's this little one's fortune to chat with Master. Lu Heng said, guess what I'm happy about right now? Lu Wenru thought, the Earl has been made a fool of like this, yet he can still laugh. Is he muddle-headed from anger? But he didn't dare to say it out loud. The Earl should have done some other business. Lu Heng shook his head and walked to the window. He used his fingers to fiddle with the small, furry leaves of the bamboo potted plant. I'm just excited when I think about fighting with the Qin clan. Lu Wenru suddenly understood. So the Earl wasn't angry at being schemed against by the Prince Zhongshuan's consort, but was excited instead? It seemed that the Earl had deep feelings for the Prince Zhongshuan's consort. Lu Wenru didn't dare to comment on his master's feelings, but he also didn't dare to not chat with him. He racked his brains to think of the most appropriate sentence. The Prince Zhongshuan's consort is an extremely intelligent and beautiful woman. It's her fortune to be able to fight with you. It's also fate. Lu Heng's voice was faint and his eyes were gentle. His love for Qin Yining had never decreased. Instead, it increased with the time he spent with Bian Ruhan. With Qin Yining's gem by his side, which woman could he be tempted by? In this lifetime, his love was only tied to Qin Yining. When he was in love with someone, even if that person was his enemy, he would only feel anticipation and excitement. Do you really want to help Pang Zhishi that much? Lu Heng gently played with the leaves of the bamboo and muttered. All right, I'll play with you. Play until you're satisfied. Lu Wenru was so scared that he didn't dare to make a sound. This was because in his eyes, Lu Heng's current state was a bit scary. It was as if he had gone crazy for a woman. Lu Heng didn't care about the merchants and didn't care what they thought. He also didn't care about how they would deal with the last of their food. Because of the four-way signal's interference, a portion of the grain stores had no choice but to lower the price of their food. The price of food in Huichuan County temporarily recovered. However, the rain that lingered for more than a month still did not stop. Large areas of the fields were flooded with water, and there was no way to drain it. Many farmers' originally fertile land had now become a swamp. There were even neighbors who fought each other because they let the water drain away and flooded each other's land, resulting in them going to court. Qin Yining had been frowning ever since she read the newspaper. Chapter 959. We don't have to think about the harvest in the south this year. If we can get through this year, it'll be considered a win. Qin Yining nodded. In this kind of weather, we can't force anything. If it doesn't work, why don't we give up on the farms for now and move to the hills instead? I once heard people say that there are many terraced fields in the southwest. Why don't we learn from them? Master Zhong thought about it and said, that's good too. It's better to find a piece of land to plant than to starve to death in a swamp. That's right. There are many people in Huichuan County who are in the same situation. They guard their family's fertile land and refuse to leave. If it's a good year, there's nothing wrong with that. But this year, there's a great flood. Rather than guarding the land, it's better to be more flexible. Who knows, it might even give the whole family a chance to live. How many people can be so flexible? Master Zhong shook his head. He dealt with the people below all year round. Most of them only wanted to do what they were doing, cultivate the land in their hands, and be satisfied as long as they paid the rent and had some left. But very few people knew how to be flexible and make use of the resources in their hands. Qin Yining pursed his lips and thought about it. He said, "I'll go back and discuss it with Wang Yi. We'll try our best to spread this idea. Let more people go to the hillsides to cultivate terraced fields. It's better than guarding a large swamp." Master Zhong smiled. Wang Yi will definitely be happy to hear this. I think Wang Yi is worried about the country and the people. He's also worried that the people will starve in the end. That's right. It's better to focus on what we can do now rather than hope for food from afar. God has given us such a long period of rain. There will definitely be a flood this year. I just hope that we can seize the time now and get some food to satisfy our hunger. Pang Shao naturally supported Qin Yining's idea. Qin Yining's tenant farmers and workers naturally followed her orders. But the ordinary people were unwilling to leave their land. They held on to the hope that the rain would pass and the sky would clear up. When the first batch of food from the four-way ship was about to run out, Qin Yining told manager Yin to stop selling food. It was getting more and more difficult to transport food. In the future, they wouldn't have any affordable food to use. They had to keep a small portion for themselves to eat. As for the other grain stores in the city, they were once again making a ruckus. Those that still had grain in stock naturally took it out and increased the price by several times. Right now, Pang Shao couldn't care less. The search in the city finally came to an end after several days of fruitless results. Even though the heavens weren't on his side, he couldn't just leave the treasure behind. Wang Yi, the princess consort's idea was very good. Think of a way to leak the news that the treasure is in the stone factory to Zhong Yiba and let Zhong Yiba take the lead. Xiaoyu said, "It's raining heavily now, so there's no way to start construction. Zhong Yiba and we are both keeping an eye on the stone factory. If you take action, you'll be in a passive position. You still have to think about how to avoid Zhong Yiba's eyes. Why don't you let Zhong Yiba worry about this?" Pang Shao nodded and said, "Yes, I also know that Sister Yi's idea is good. But we have to think of a way to gain Lu Heng's trust." Su Weiji muttered, "Zhong Yiba is cunning and suspicious. If the people around us act, they will definitely reveal flaws. We have to carefully consider the people who will leak the news." Pang Shao nodded. Xiaoyu said bluntly, "Actually, the plan that the princess consort said at the beginning was very good. If those people from the Qingtian alliance were still alive, it would be best to use them to send the news. It's a pity that they have bad intentions towards the princess consort. Wang Yi can't tolerate them." Pang Shao smiled bitterly. "How could I not know that they are the best people to lure Lu Heng into the trap? It's just that they want to harm Sister Yi, and Sister Yi often travels outside. No matter how many people I arrange, I can't be at ease. You can be a thief for 1,000 days, but how can you guard against a thief for 1,000 days? That's why I was so anxious to eliminate that group of people, just to get rid of all future troubles. I didn't expect that man proposes but God disposes. In the end, there were still 2 fish that escaped the net. This old man understands Wang Ye's plan. Right now, I can only ask the princess consort to be more careful when she goes out. But it's fine if Wang Yi arranges a few more guards. Those 2 definitely won't be able to leave the city gates. They might be like 2 mice in the city, hiding in some dark corner and trembling. They won't dare to come out and seek death." Pang Shao nodded and said, "I will be more careful. But I still have to think about the person who will leak the news to Lu Heng." Xiaoyu and Su Weiji also fell into deep thought. Right now was the best time to deal with the matter of the treasure. If they missed it, it would be a pity for Qin Yining's efforts to reach Huichuan County first. Moreover, they knew the approximate location of the treasure, but they couldn't make a move. How could they not be anxious in such a situation? Regardless of whether they could get the treasure in the end, they had to try their best. The room fell into a long silence. Everyone was racking their brains to think of a solution. Su Weiji suddenly said, "Wang Yi, this old man has an idea." "Mr. Su, please speak." Pang Xiao and Xia Yu both looked at Su Weiji. Su Weiji said, "Why don't this old man pretend to have a falling out with Wang Yi and go to Zhong Yibo to surrender? The news of the treasure can be used as a bargaining chip for this old man to surrender. I think with Zhong Yibo's cautiousness, he will definitely put me under guard temporarily. He will further verify my words. Once my words are verified, our matter will be settled. When the time comes, Wang Yi can think of a way to save me." Upon hearing this, Pang Xiao slowly shook his head. "No. This method won't work. Lu Heng is very suspicious. You are my most capable strategist. Even if you say a lot of things, he will still suspect you. Moreover, he is very vicious and merciless. These days you can see how he treats the servants in his residence. In his eyes, human lives are like grass. He would rather kill 1,000 innocent people than let a single one go. If you go, you will be like a lamb in a tiger's den." However, Xia Yu said, "Wang Yi, this old man thinks that Brother Su's method will work." Su Weiji smiled. "Wang Yi, Brother Xia is the best at judging. If he says it will work, then I know that my method will work." Pang Xiao shook his head. "Don't think about taking the risk. Don't say that it doesn't matter if you lose your life for the treasure. Although I want the treasure, I don't want it to the point of losing my mind. The two of you should give up on this idea as soon as possible. But what other methods do we have now?" Xia Yu thought for a moment. "Wang Yi, this method is feasible." Pang Xiao still shook his head. "Whether it is Mr. Xia or Mr. Su, both of you have been by this king's side for so many years. Both of you have sacrificed a lot to help this king. This king cannot let you risk your lives. This method won't work." Xia Yu and Su Weiji were both moved and sighed. "Wang Yi is too kind." Sigh. Chapter 960. Pang Xiao understood Qin Yining and knew that she was also the most soft-hearted person. She would never build their success on the sacrifice of others. Therefore, she did not object to Xia Yu's suggestion. Huzi went inside to ask Qin Yining to come out. Qin Yining had just finished making a pair of boots for Pang Xiao. He was carefully checking with Ji Yun and Bing Tang to see if there was a needle missing. When he heard that Huzi had come, he smiled and said, "You came at the right time. I was just about to ask Wang Yi if he was busy so that he could come back and try on the boots." He smiled and went to ask Huzi to come in. As soon as he entered, Qin Yining asked with a smile, "Is your family's Wang Yi busy?" "Your Highness, Wang Yi, Mr. Xia, and Mr. Su are discussing an important matter. Wang Yi asked me to ask you to go to the front and help to make a decision." Qin Yining blinked and handed the boots to Ziyuan to keep. He took the warm handkerchief from Ji Yun and wiped his hands. "What's the important matter?" "Your Highness, I've been waiting outside, so I'm not sure. But seeing that Wang Yi, Mr. Xia, and Mr. Su have different opinions, they asked you to make a decision. It's rare that Mr. Xia, Mr. Su, and Wang Yi have different opinions." Qin Yining smiled and said, "Then I'll go and take a look." "Your Highness, it's cold outside. Put this on." Bing Tang draped a dark green embroidered cloak over Qin Yining's shoulders. The dark green color was extremely pure, and the embroidery on it was also exquisite. It made Qin Yining's face look like new snow, and it made him look even whiter and more delicate. As soon as Huzi saw Bing Tang, he grinned. Bing Tang blushed. She rolled her eyes at Huzi and went to get the wooden scissors for Qin Yining. These days, it was still drizzling. If the courtyard wasn't dredged, it could even be used to raise fish. If she didn't wear a pair of wooden clogs on her embroidered shoes and coat when she went out, her shoes and socks would get wet every time. It was very cold. Huzi tactfully went out to wait. Qin Yining, Ji Yun, and Bing Tang were ready. They asked Han Xiao and Ziyuan to look after the house. The three of them left the main room and went to the study in the front yard while chatting and laughing. Pang Xiao, Xiaoyu, and Su Weiji were still arguing about whether or not that method was feasible. Suddenly, they heard crisp voices and laughter that sounded like silver bells coming from the courtyard. The three of them stopped arguing and couldn't help but look at the door. Qin Yining smiled and lifted the curtain to come in. Wang Yi, what do you want me to do? She nodded to Xiaoyu and Su Weiji. Xiaoyu and Su Weiji both stood up and returned the greeting. Pang Xiao smiled and went forward to take Qin Yining's hand. Seeing that her hand was a bit cold, she simply warmed it for her and led her to sit down at the head of the table. Mr. Su thought of a way to tell Lu Heng about the treasure. I don't think it's feasible, but Mr. Xia and Mr. Su insisted on taking the risk. Listen and help me see if this is a good idea. When Xiaoyu and Su Weiji heard Pang Zhao's words, they immediately said, Wang Yi is being shameless. You told Wang Fei that you don't agree at the beginning. Even if Wang Fei agrees, she won't dare to say it, right? Pang Xiao said, Sister Yi is the most realistic. She won't speak carelessly. What's the matter? Qin Yining took the hot tea that Bing Tang had brought over. Su Weiji told her about the plan just now. In the end, he said, I think that with my way of doing things, even if Zhong Yibo suspects something, he won't be able to confirm whether I'm telling the truth or not. As long as he investigates, he will know where the treasure is. As long as he's willing to covet the treasure, my mission will be completed. Wouldn't it be easy for you guys to rescue me? Xiaoyu also said, actually, there's no need to rush to rescue you. You can just hide by Zhong Yibo's side. Who knows, you might come in handy in the future. Of course, this old man feels that it's better for Brother Su to go than for me. I came up with this idea. Of course, I should go, Su Weiji said unhappily. However, Xiaoyu said, Brother Su is too honest. It's better for me to go. Although I'm honest, I'm not stupid. It's better for me to go. Su Weiji and Xiaoyu actually started to argue about this matter. When Qin Yining saw this, he hurriedly said, Sirs, please don't argue. The two of them temporarily stopped arguing and looked at Qin Yining inquiringly. Princess Consort, do you think this method is feasible? Qin Yining smiled, this method is feasible. However, it's not the best method. Oh. Xiaoyu and Su Weiji said in unison, so Princess Consort has a better method? Qin Yining nodded. Pang Xiao immediately laughed. Fortunately, his wife was smart. Otherwise, he would have to spend a lot of effort to stop the two sirs from taking the risk. Sister Yi, what method do you have? Pang Xiao looked at Qin Yining with interest. Qin Yining felt a little guilty. He sighed and said, actually, there's a better person to go to Zhong Yibo and tell him about the treasure. Oh. Who is Princess Consort? Xiaoyu asked. Pang Xiao looked at Qin Yining's uneasy expression and immediately frowned. Sister Yi, don't tell me you're thinking of going there yourself. Qin Yining didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Of course not. I'm not crazy. If I send myself to him, will he capture me and use me to threaten you? Pang Xiao's brows finally relaxed, and he said, at least you understand. Then who do you think is a better person? Qin Yining smiled apologetically at Pang Xiao, and said, of course it's the two remaining members of the Qing Tian alliance. The two that you haven't caught. Pang Xiao looked at Qin Yining, and his eyes suddenly widened. Qin Yining lowered his head in embarrassment, and said, I knew that this day would come. You wanted to find Lu Hang. But there was no suitable person. So I secretly asked Manager Yin of Sidong's shop to help me hide the two of them using Boss Chou's identity. At this point, Qin Yining stood up and bowed to Pang Xiao. I'm sorry for causing you to lead your men to search for them in the rain for so many days. Pang Xiao didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He knew it. He had personally led his men to search for two people with no background. How could they possibly hide from Jinghu Wei? So there was actually an expert helping them in secret. Pang Xiao was angry and amused at the same time, and he said, Why didn't you tell me? If I told you, wouldn't you have caught them and killed them in a fit of anger? I didn't agree with you killing Guan Dahu and the others before. They were still useful. Pang Xiao said helplessly, their existence threatened your safety. I couldn't have let them live. Where did you ask Manager Yin to hide the two of them? I haven't seen them yet. Didn't you ground me? Later, when I was released, I was in a hurry to make boots for you, so I didn't have time to go out. Pang Xiao looked at Qin Yining with a straight face. His gaze was like an old father looking at a child who had made a mistake. Qin Yining lowered his head, and from time to time, he would steal glances at Pang Xiao's reaction. Chapter 961. Pang Xiao took a deep breath and then slowly exhaled. Reaching out, he pulled Qin Yining over and pinched her cheek. Bad girl. Qin Yining lowered her head and rubbed her face. Who told you not to listen to my advice? Look, isn't this person useful now? Alright, you did a good job keeping the two of them. But how did you do it? Qin Yining smiled. It's a secret. Pang Xiao looked at her crafty appearance. She was like a kitten that had succeeded. His heart felt like it was soaked in soft and sweet warm water. Qin Yining said, in their minds, the Boss Chou I disguised myself as has already joined their Qing Tian alliance. As for the reason, I want to use them to make friends with their alliance leader. You chased them until they were at the end of their rope, and I saved them. They must have a lot of trust in me. So at this time, they will definitely listen to my suggestion. So you plan to go see them after disguising yourself? Yes. Qin Yining said, at this time, they will only believe me if I appear. Pang Xiao muttered, that's a good idea. How about this, I will also disguise myself and go with you. If they try to harm you in the slightest, I will immediately break their necks. Qin Yining looked at Pang Xiao. After some consideration, she did not refuse his request. If she did not agree at this time, Pang Xiao might rather not use the two of them than let her get close to them. Xia Yu and Su Weiji chuckled as they looked at Pang Xiao and Qin Yining. Clearly, they found their current appearance very interesting. Su Weiji spread his hands and said, with Wang Fei here, this old man doesn't have a chance to take the risk for Wang Yi. Xia Yu laughed loudly and said, Wang Fei's divine foresight is flawless. It really makes one have a whole new level of respect for you. Wang Yi still needs to listen to Wang Fei's advice in the future. Pang Xiao was really helpless at this time. His wife was too smart and had too many ideas. Many things were out of his control. He was undoubtedly a very controlling person, but he did not want to control Qin Yining too much. Forget it. If there is anything in the future, let's discuss it. Qin Yining smiled and nodded. She could only obediently agree. But it was hard to guarantee that there would be times when Pang Xiao would get angry. She still had to do what she had to do. At that time. Since we've already discussed the countermeasures, there's no time to lose. Mr. Xia, please help me disguise myself, Qin Yining said with a smile. or continue to disguise? Pang Xiao shook his head. This time, I'll disguise myself as a bodyguard. I plan to stay by Sister Yi's side. Mu Jinghu, who had been silently eating melon seeds, suddenly said, disguise me as a boxer. I will accompany you. Xia Yu nodded in agreement. Qin Yining could not help but laugh. With you two great Buddhas around, even if those two become Sun Wukong, they will not be able to escape. Hearing Qin Yining's words, everyone in the room roared with laughter. The atmosphere was as joyous as if it was the new year. Xia Yu helped Qin Yining disguise as before. The mole on his face was also in its original position. Pang Xiao and Mu Jinghu were tall and handsome. If they were to disguise themselves as guards, they naturally had to disguise themselves as more ordinary people. Very quickly, under Xia Yu's skillful hands, two dark-skinned ordinary men who could not be found in a crowd sat in the room. Qin Yining looked at the two of them and said, if I was not familiar with Wang Yi and young Master Mu's figures, I would not be able to tell who is who. These two faces are really forgettable. Xia Yu laughed. This kind of face is the most suitable to be a guard. Yes. Su Weiji nodded. Pang Xiao asked Xia Yu, if this face is drenched by the rain, will the color fade? It won't. When we come back to wash our faces, we have to use special medicine to wash it off. Don't worry, Wang Yi. That's good. After they finished disguising themselves, they went to change their clothes. Qin Yining was dressed in green men's clothes, and her hair was tied into a neat bun. Mu Jinghu smiled and said, if you were holding a folding fan, your aura would really resemble Shanshan. I deliberately imitated Bosch Zhou. After all, it's no secret that she wears men's clothes as a woman when she's out doing business. Previously, Guan Dahu was very cunning. I was afraid that he would notice anything amiss. Pang Xiao and Mu Jinghu both nodded. Pang Xiao sighed in his heart. In fact, he was very touched that Qin Yining was willing to take so many risks for him. However, as a man, he had to rely on his wife every time he encountered a problem. He was a little frustrated. If he said this out loud, it would make him seem very pretentious. Therefore, Pang Xiao did not say much. He only wanted to finish this quickly so that he could go back to his room and punish that lying little rascal. Shopkeeper Ian had been waiting for Qin Yining to come these past few days. He did not expect to see him today. "Oh, you're here. It's raining so heavily. You must have something urgent to see those two people?" Qin Yining smiled and nodded. "Yes, it's all thanks to shopkeeper Yin's help these past few days. I'm here especially to thank you. I wouldn't dare. Please don't stand on ceremony." Shopkeeper Yin nodded slightly at Pang Xiao and Mu Jinghu, who had disguised themselves. Then, he smiled at Qin Yining and said, "Come with me. I've hidden them in the cellar." Cellar. Qin Yining turned around and glanced at Pang Xiao. Pang Xiao followed Qin Yining closely without any expression on his face. He was also curious. It was not that he had not brought people to search Sidong number before, but he had not found a cellar here. Shopkeeper Ian led them all the way to the backyard. After passing through the moon gate, they arrived at the little garden that led to the main hall. After fumbling around in the bushes for a while, they found a mechanism. After a slight creaking sound, the water tank that was filled with water at the corner of the wall actually moved aside on its own. Shopkeeper Ian smiled at Qin Yining and winked at her, hinting for her not to say anything. Instead, he said, "Boss, the two brothers are here." Qin Yining knew that the people below could hear what they were saying. She walked slowly to the hole beside the water tank and looked down. She saw two dark figures looking up as well. As the cellar was dimly lit, Qin Yining could not see their faces clearly. "Brothers, are you from the Qingtian Alliance?" Yes. Are you Boss Joe? Yes. Brothers, would you please come up to talk? Qin Yining asked as she squatted beside the cellar. Shi Fang and Lu Xiong were a little hesitant. Boss Joe, what if we go up and catch Prince Zhongshuan's men searching for us? Chapter 962. Both of them felt very uneasy, but this was the four-way shop's place after all. The owner of four-way shop had personally come to invite them up for a chat. If they refused, it would not make sense. The two of them had no choice but to move a ladder and crawl up like two rats through the hole that was only big enough for one person to pass through. Even though there was food and drink in the cellar all day, there was no daylight after all. In addition, the air circulation was slow. When they came out, they felt that their bodies smelled awful. When they looked at the female owner of four-way shop again, both of them felt rather embarrassed. Head shopkeeper Yin promptly came forward and introduced, Boss, this is Shi Fang and this is Lu Xiong. He then turned around and introduced the two of them, this is the owner of four-way shop, Boss Joe. Shi Fang and Lu Xiong looked at each other, then knelt on the wet ground with a thud and kowtowed to Qin Yining. Boss Joe, we brothers were at our wits' end and it was all thanks to Boss Joe that we were rescued. The two of us will never forget your great kindness and kindness. Even if we work like cows or horses for the rest of our lives, we will repay Boss Joe's great kindness. Qin Yining hurriedly smiled and reached out to help them up. Brothers, please rise. Since Hall Master Qiao had already invited me to join the Qin Tian Alliance that day, we are all brothers of the same family. What kind of person would I be if I were to stand by and watch when my brothers are in trouble? It's just that the conditions are limited, so I'll have to trouble the two of you to stay in the cellar these few days. Don't say that, Boss Qiao has already treated us with extreme benevolence. At that kind of critical moment, hiding us might have brought trouble upon ourselves, but you have always protected us. We brothers are truly grateful. Qin Yining smiled and shook his head, this is nothing, it's cold outside, let's go inside and talk. Head shopkeeper Yin also said, refreshments have already been prepared in the house. Boss, brothers, this way please. Please. The two sides modestly went to the side room. Pang Xiao and Mu Jinghu both stood at inconspicuous positions, quietly treating themselves as decorations in the house. Meanwhile, head shopkeeper Yin left with his men after serving the tea. Pang Xiao was curious as to how Qin Yining would persuade the two of them. Even though he was standing in a corner, he had been discreetly looking in Qin Yining's direction. At this moment, Shi Fang and Lu Xiong were not in the mood to pay attention to the two ordinary-looking guards in the corner. Their hearts were filled with the excitement of seeing their saviors. It's true. If it weren't for Boss Joe's benevolence this time, we brothers definitely wouldn't have escaped Prince Zhongshuan's pursuit. That's right. I don't know what's wrong with Prince Zhongshuan, but we brothers have no enmity with him, yet he unexpectedly wants to kill us. At that time, there were 4 brothers outside, including us. The other 2 brothers were caught by the pursuers and died very miserably. Shi Fang wiped his face. Prince Zhongshuan's actions are intolerable. If I don't take revenge, I won't be able to get rid of the hatred in my heart. Lu Xiong also said, that's right. I also can't take this lying down. However, Prince Zhongshuan is of noble status and has a large number of troops under his command. Revenge is easier said than done. It's already good enough that we're able to live dutifully right now. Qin Yining couldn't help but glance back at Pang Xiao when he heard the two of them clamoring to take revenge on Pang Xiao, who was standing in the corner. Pang Xiao was still expressionless. Qin Yining coughed and sighed. You're right. Prince Zhongshuan controls troops and battles all year round. Not to mention that we're alone now, even if we brothers were still healthy, I'm afraid we'd still be like mantises trying to stop a chariot. However, Hall Master Chiao and the others were killed by Prince Zhongshuan's men for no reason. This time, we've lost so many brothers. I really can't take this lying down. Lu Xiong shook his head and said, what can we do if we can't take this lying down? Could it be that Boss Chiao has a way to deal with him? Qin Yining smiled bitterly and said, although my four-way pass seems to be a big deal, it's nothing in front of a true noble. With the four-way pass's ability, we really don't have the confidence to go against Prince Zhongshuan. When the time comes, I'm afraid our bones will be chewed up by him. In the entire Huichuan County, I'm afraid that only Zhong Yiba can contend against Prince Zhongshuan. Pang Xiao blinked as he listened to Qin Yining's nonsense. Finally, he was involved. Those who weren't familiar with him might not know, but looking at Qin Yining's small appearance, it was obvious that he was up to no good. However, Shifang's eyes lit up. Zhong Yiba can indeed contend against Prince Zhongshuan. I've heard people say before that Zhong Yiba is from the Lu family. The Lu family is very capable. Although Prince Zhongshuan is good at war, if he really goes against the Lu family, his foundation is much weaker. If you ask me, if we can ally with Zhong Yiba, it's not impossible to get revenge. Qin Yining repeatedly waved his hand and sighed, Brother Shi, don't overestimate me. I'm just a small four-way pass. Zhong Yiba won't even put me in his eyes. You also know that he's from the Lu family. His family has a lot of gold and silver. Even if I take out all my wealth to bribe him, he might not even put me in his eyes. If you want to persuade him to help you get revenge, it's harder than ascending to heaven. However, Shifang shook his head and said, I do have a suggestion. If I say it, Brother Lu and Boss Chiao can help think it over. After all, there are only 3 of us left in the Qingtian alliance. Lu Xiong could vaguely guess what Shifang was thinking and was a little hesitant. Qin Yining didn't understand and asked, what are you talking about? Shifang looked at Mu Jinghu and Pang Xiao behind Qin Yining and said in a low voice, is it convenient to talk here? Qin Yining smiled, it's convenient. These are all my trusted aides. I bring them with me no matter what I do. Shifang said, all right, then I'll be frank. Boss Chiao also knows that the large amount of treasure stored in the stone factory has been looking for an opportunity to be transported out. There is such a thing. However, the supervising imperial envoy and the county magistrate have already taken up their positions. Previously, when I discussed this matter with Hall Master Chiao, it was already too late. Whether it's Prince Zhongshuan or Zhong Yiba, they won't let anyone who steals materials from the Imperial Mausoleum off the hook. As Qin Yining spoke, he suddenly looked at Shifang and blinked, Brother Shi, are you thinking of using this treasure as a bargaining chip? Smart. Shifang gave him a thumbs up and said, if I don't get revenge, it will be difficult to get rid of the hatred in my heart. My brothers in the underworld will also not be able to rest in peace. We don't have any other wealth to use as a bargaining chip, so we can't persuade Zhong Yiba. However, Zhong Yiba will definitely be interested in this treasure. Qin Yining nodded, he will indeed be interested. However, if we tell him, I'm afraid that we won't be able to get all of this treasure. Sigh, for the sake of this treasure, so many of our brothers have died. The 2 of us have already discussed this in the cellar. If we can get some of it, it will naturally be good. If we can't get it, then it means that our lives are poor. If we don't take this wealth with us, even if you give us so much treasure, we won't have the life to use it. Lu Xiong agreed, compared to our lives, the treasure is nothing. We brothers can't bear to take this lying down. When the 2 of them said this, they looked at Qin Yining with apprehension. They knew that this woman now had the power to decide their lives. If she didn't want to reveal the secret of the treasure and they had the intention to do so, she would definitely kill them to silence them. Then, she would find an opportunity to take the treasure for herself. Therefore, the two of them were betting. They were betting that this woman would be able to save their lives when they were in danger. She should be a person who valued the code of brotherhood in the Jianghu. Qin Yining thought for a moment, then said, "In order to avenge our brothers, Brother Lu and Brother Shi are both planning to give up on hiding the treasure." The two of them shook their heads and said, "We're not giving up completely, but we really can't find any other good ideas. If we can get one or two of them, that would be even better." Qin Yining thought for a moment, then said, "I think that this idea is not impossible. To be honest, although the treasure is good, it's a hot potato. Once the treasure is in our hands, the three of us will become the target of everyone. If we don't have this treasure, we brothers can still live a good life. We won't be so poor that we'll lose our lives. If we tell Zhong Yibo about this and ask Zhong Yibo to help us take revenge against Prince Zhongshuan, I'll agree." The two of them sighed in relief and couldn't help but praise. Although Boss Zhou is a woman, she's broad-minded and generous. We brothers admire her very much. You're too kind. Qin Yining smiled embarrassedly. To be honest with you two brothers, I'm just scared. Qin Yining pointed at the furnishings in the room and said, "It's not easy for a woman like me to do business. However, with my ability, I'll die if I go up against Prince Zhongshuan's army. I'll also die if I go up against the Lu clan. One's ability depends on how big a bowl of rice they eat." When Hall Master Qiao and the others met with mishap, I was really scared. If not for the treasure, Hall Master Qiao and his brothers would still be alive and well. Qin Yining shook her head as she spoke, her voice hoarse and choked with sobs. "If you two brothers think it's feasible, I have no objections. After the funeral, if you two brothers don't mind, you can work with me at Sidong's shop. You can still live a good life." These words struck a chord in Shifang and Lu Xiong's hearts. They had been hunted down for a long time and were already scared. The life they yearned for now wasn't to sit on a mountain of gold and silver. They knew that even if they had the chance to sit on a mountain of gold and silver, it wouldn't belong to them in the end. They might even lose their lives. What they yearned for now was stability. This treasure was a hot potato. It was better to leave it to someone more capable. Wonderful. I didn't expect Boss Zhou to be such a reasonable and straightforward person. Since you don't object, then it's decided. Qin Yining smiled and nodded, then asked, "How do you two brothers plan to tell Zhong Yibo?" You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.